welcome to Crime in Court. My name is Heather, and this is episode 41 of the Canton Cover-Up, the Massachusetts Commonwealth versus Karen Reed. And we are going to be talking today about the despicable and disgusting Trooper Proctor. So, if you've been watching this trial or listening to any of my previous videos, Trooper Proctor is kind of a key individual in this case because he potentially, allegedly, may have planted some taillight pieces at the crime scene where John O'Keefe's body happened to be found lying unconscious the morning of January 29th, 2022. Karen Reed, Jennifer McCabe and Carrie Roberts were driving around and looking for him because Karen woke up frantic that John hadn't come home. They go driving around and they find him in front of 34 Fairview Road, which is the home of a Boston police officer, or, well, I think he's retired now, Brian Albert. John O'Keefe is also Boston police officer, although they say they don't. Brian Albert said he really didn't know John very well and didn't have many interactions with him. So we'll have to just take his word because John's not here to tell us any differently. And unfortunately, he's not here to tell us what happened that night, but his injuries do tell a story. So we we're on week 7 of this trial, and we still have yet to find any kind of evidence linking Karen Reed to a second-degree homicide charge. I mean, I'm not seeing it. Is anybody? I mean, I know there's the like crazy anti-Karen Reed people who see it, but besides them, I just don't see it. So she, like I said, she's on trial 7 weeks now. And we're in the 7th week, and we are just now finally hearing from the lead investigator. Oops, I'm sorry, the case manager, because all of a sudden they want to change his title to case manager instead of lead investigator because they don't want us to think he's the lead investigator because of what we're going to listen to today. Because he's disgusting and despicable, as my title appropriately names him. So, up first, before we get into Trooper Proctor's testimony, which has been like hotly contested, is he going to testify? Isn't he? Everybody's been wondering if he's going to plead the fifth so he doesn't incriminate himself. Well, it appears that he does not. And he's just going to lay it all out there and tell us his version of the story. So we're going to get into that. But first, on the screen behind me, you'll see this is Nicholas Baros. He's a Dighton police officer who was called to the stand by the prosecution, by the way, but he's a really good witness for the defense, and you'll see why. He was only on the stand for a few minutes. However, what he does say, so he was called, so the Dighton police is Dighton, Massachusetts, is where Karen Reed's parents live, and she happened to go there after that morning, after finding out that John had passed, and she was, I'm sure, in need of some consoling and some comforting, so she went home to her parents' home in Dighton, which was about a 45-minute drive from Canton. So at whatever time this is, I can't remember now, but it was still early in the day. They decided because John O'Keefe didn't have a shoe, and Michael Proctor will explain this more, but because he was missing a shoe, they thought that he was in a car accident or had been hit by a car, and at least that's what Proctor said. And that was his probable cause to go to Karen Reed's parents' home and seize her phone and vehicle. That's their probable cause because John was missing a shoe. And possibly because Jen McCabe had something to do with it, saying, "Oh, I heard," because she called Officer Lank back to the scene later that morning at a little after 9, and he came back and she told him, "Oh, by the way, Karen Reed said, I did I hit him? I hope I didn't hit him. And I don't know if she said that in front of an officer or not, but we just wanted to make sure that you heard it." That's literally what they called Officer Link back to the scene for that morning. So because of that statement by Jennifer McCabe, Miss Truthful and Honest Person, by the way, we're gonna just trust her word and go and seize Karen Reed's vehicle and cell phone. They had no probable cause for this, and I'm building up to this because it is disgusting and despicable that they even went and started to seize her things before an investigation was even completed or begun, for that matter. All they did was ask Jen McCabe, "What happened?" "Oh, okay, that's the truth. Let's go with it." That's basically what they did. So I'm a little amped up. This is my second time that I'm going to be watching Trooper Proctor, by the way, so I'm going to be probably doubly mad and probably catch things that I missed before. So just be aware, it's going to be a wild ride. Um, yeah, listening to Trooper Proctor, it's going to be a little crazy. I'm amped up from that, and I also just recorded a episode of the Menendez brothers trial, 1993 trial. I'm covering that. We're rewatching the trial and just kind of learning from it and taking what we can from it. And in the episode that I just recorded, it was the mistress of the therapist of one of the boys and how he was basically controlling her, manipulating her, and all this stuff. And it was nuts. Anyways, it was a great episode if you want to go look at that. But my point was, what was my point? I don't know. I get carried away in my thoughts. So Nicholas Baros is the Dighton police officer that he came to the scene at Karen's parents' home because um and Trooper Proctor even explains like, well, we were going to his jurisdiction, so we didn't want to just come into it. So, it's typical that we would call, the office, the nearest police office station for the town that they're heading into to say, hey, we're doing some business here. And I guess it's just like what you do. I don't know. I guess that's how business is conducted. So Nicholas Barros was the car that was assigned to go to the Reed home, and he was there that morning or afternoon when, sorry, it is afternoon. He was there that afternoon when Karen Reed's vehicle was towed. So he got there before the tow truck got there. He got there before they came, and I guess they called some public works or whatever to plow their driveway so they could get her car out and things like that. So there's a whole bunch of stuff, but this is just, I mean, you can't get better than this answer. So this was a question that Adam Lally asked his own witness on the stand yesterday, and here's what he said about the taillight.
Troopers went to the front door and made contact with the homeowner.
Now, as far as you were there specifically for a vehicle, correct?
Correct.
Did you observe a vehicle in the driveway at any time?
Yes, we observed a black Lexus SUV in the driveway.
And what, if any, observations did you make to the rear area of that vehicle?
At first, I did not go up to the vehicle. I just remained at the driveway and waited for the troopers to come back. And once they came back, they were let into the house through the garage. I had walked in with them briefly and then went back out to the garage and remained with the vehicle.
And as far as at any point in time, did you have any conversation with anyone named Karen Reed that day while you were at the house?
I did not.
Now, with respect to you come back out to the garage, is that correct?
Correct.
And the troopers are inside the house, is that also correct?
Correct.
Now, at some point, do other vehicles come down to the driveway area of this residence that you were at?
I had contacted the highway superintendent after speaking with the troopers about how to retrieve the vehicle since the driveway was untouched and had about a foot of snow. I had made the decision I would call the highway superintendent and see if that he would come and plow the driveway so that the tow truck would have access inside in the driveway.
And just in reference to this driveway, just if you could, not exact footage or anything, but how close is this Lexus SUV parked in relation to the roadway? How long is that drive?
It's got to be about 150 feet off the roadway, if not more.
And if you recall, from where you're standing at the point of the garage, was what part of the vehicle was facing you? Was it the front of the vehicle, the back of the vehicle, the side of the vehicle?
I was looking at the left side of the vehicle.
And at some point, did you make any observations of the right rear part of that Lexus SUV?
I did.
And what, if anything, did you observe about that area of the vehicle?
I saw that there was some damage to the right rear taillight. To my best ability and recollection, that taillight was not completely damaged. It was cracked, and a piece was missing, but not completely damaged.
One crack and one piece missing, but it was not completely damaged. The photos that they have given us, let's see if I can find. Hold on one second. All right, so I just pulled up on the screen here the so this is what the taillight looked like after this individual from the crime lab, she got all the pieces and put them together. So it was very boring testimony. I'm not going to make you sit through it, but they went through every individual time. So Trooper Proctor went on, I think it's like 6 or 7 undocumented searches for the house. They tried to make it appear in Sergeant Buchanan and Trooper Proctor made it appear that like that's just what you do. You just keep driving past a crime scene to see if more evidence will reveal itself. And that's how they kept saying it, to see if more evidence will just reveal itself. Or so you could just sprinkle more taillight, or not even, just because there's no pictures of it. You could literally just have all the taillight pieces in your possession, put them in an envelope and say, hey, I found this on a search. Because he didn't take any photos and we don't know on a grid where anything was found. But there were 47 pieces of taillight found. So that's very different than what Officer Baros just reported. And this image that you're looking at is the taillight put back together after the crime lab put it back together. And it still was missing pieces. The piece, no, not pieces, missing one piece. The piece that it looked like was missing from her taillight from the morning in the video of her leaving John's driveway going to look for him. So again, Lally just keeps messing up his own case and supporting the defense. It's kind of just really strange to watch. So again, what does he say? Let's hear that again.
I saw that there was some damage to the right rear taillight. To my best ability and recollection, that taillight was not completely damaged. It was cracked, and a piece was missing, but not completely damaged.
And then beyond the taillight area?
That's all you need to know. It was cracked, not completely damaged, one piece missing. That's all you need to know. It wasn't shattered into 47 pieces. He didn't say there was a huge portion missing where it looked like it shattered. No, he said one piece, some damage, but not the damage that Commonwealth is claiming it to be. So I wanted to put that out there because I think this was really, really, really important testimony. I mean, he's the one thing that so far can conclusively tell us the damage was to her taillight was not that bad. It was minimal. Yet we were told that it's smashed in pieces, jagged, all this other crap. So someone's lying to us. And I don't think it was Nicholas Baros. What does he have to lose by being on the stand for a town from things that happened in a town that wasn't even his? So what does he have to gain or lose? Nothing. All right, so we're going to skip forward to, I cannot even believe that they called Trooper Proctor. And we're going to listen to pretty much a majority of his testimony. So let's get started. I don't want to, but here it is. It's disgusting.
How long have you been a trooper with state police?
For about 10 years, and it'll be 5 years in September with the homicide unit.
Now, with reference to your work with the homicide unit, with the detective unit at the district attorney's office, What, if any, specialized training did you receive in regard to your work within that unit?
I've attended several homicide schools. I've also been certified in Celebrite software programming. I've also, in addition to homicide investigations, have worked within the narcotics unit on several different investigations there as well.
Now, with respect to your work with the detective unit, as far as do you have sort of an on-call system?
We do.
And can you explain to the jury sort of how that works, or how those specific days for your on-call duties are assigned?
Sure. So a Sergeant Buchanan usually sets the on-call rotation. It's at random, and your on-call is from 7 a.m. to 7 a.m. Any unattended death, homicide, suicide, overdose, things of that nature that comes in during that time frame, you own it. That's your call.
Now, were you working in that capacity with the detective units on January 29th, 2022?
Yes,
And at some point in the morning, did you receive a call in regard to a situation in the town of Canton?
I did.
And what, if anything, was that? When did you first receive that call from them?
Sergeant Buchanan called me at approximately 6:48 that Saturday morning, advised that Canton PD had a male party that was discovered in the snow outside of a residence, and he wasn't sure what had happened. It was originally given to me as a possible medical situation.
And based on that initial call and that initial information that you received, what, if anything, did you do?
And at that point, I knew I needed to gather further information, so I contacted Detective Lank from Canton Police Department to see exactly what transpired in the morning. He had informed me that a male party had been transported to Good Samaritan Hospital with some injuries. Detective Lank didn't have much more information, so I knew I needed to contact the paramedic at the hospital, the individual who was treating Mr. O'Keefe.
Before we get to that, if I could, I'm sorry. As far as Detective Sergeant Lank was concerned, was that someone that you called on your own, or how did you get his information, or why did you call him specifically?
I knew he was on scene, so I called Detective Lank.
So that was some information that you had received at some point earlier, and then you contacted Detective Sergeant Lank.
Correct.
And following that, you reached out to whom? I'm sorry?
It was, firefighter Anthony Flamati.
And with reference to that conversation, what, if anything, did you learn from that?
Firefighter Flamati informed me that
I'm going to allow it.
Firefighter Flamati informed me that Mr. O'Keefe had some injuries to his right arm, some abrasions to his right arm, some injuries to his eyes, a cut to the nose area, and he put a 10% chance of survival for Mr. O'Keefe.
And then based on that information,
100%.
who did you call next?
I contacted Sergeant Buchanan, advised him that this sounds like it's more than a medical situation.
And what, if any, decision did you and Sergeant Buchanan come to with regard to what to do, or where to go, or what the next step should be?
So there's a couple different steps. Number one, it was blizzard conditions, and we operate, Ford Fusions or Chevy Malibu. So we got authorization to use our personal vehicles at a four-wheel drive, and to meet at Canton PD and to.
So you don't have any kind of GPS locating you or anything that like ties you to a specific location or place at a certain time because maybe you don't want like your I don't know, surveillance dash cam to record something you might be doing that's nefarious? Is that why you took your personal vehicle?
speak with the responding officers.
And about what time was it that you and Sergeant Buchanan arrived at the Canton Police Department?
It was approximately 10 a.m. that morning.
And so, Trooper Proctor, if I could ask you, whereabouts were you at about 8:22 in the morning?
Home.
Had you shoveled out of your driveway at that time?
Not yet.
Had you cleaned off your car at that time?
No.
So you arrived at the Canton Police Station about 10 a.m. or so. When was it that you arrived in relation to Sergeant Buchanan? If you know?
At Canton PD?
Yes.
I don't recall if Sergeant Buchanan arrived first or myself.
But suffice it to say, sometime you both arrived around 10 a.m., is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And where did you go with the Canton Police when you arrived there?
We spoke with the, Sergeant Sean Good.
And what, if anything, did you learn from Sergeant Good?
Sergeant Good informed us that while he was on scene, he identified Kerry Roberts, Jennifer McCabe, Karen Reed. He also informed us that Jennifer McCabe was out early in the night at a waterfall bar in Canton with some individuals, and that she was the one who called 911 when they found Mr. O'Keefe in the snow that morning.
Now, with regard to the parties that you just mentioned, prior to January 29th, 2022, had you ever met or were you aware of either Jennifer McCabe or Kerry Roberts, or Karen Reed, or John O'Keefe?
I've never met any of them.
And at some point subsequent, did you have occasion to meet and speak with Ms. Reed?
Yes,
And do you see Ms. Reed in the courtroom today?
I do.
Just for clarification purposes, if you could identify as to where she's seated or an article of clothing that she's wearing.
She's seated between Mr. Jackson and Mr. Yannetti wearing a pinstripe sport coat.
No, just ask the record reflect identification of the defendant.
Yes.
Now, after you speak with Sergeant Good, did you speak with anybody else at the Canton Police Station?
No.
And where did yourself and Sergeant Buchanan go from there?
We then traveled to the home of Matthew and Jennifer McCabe.
Now, with reference to when I say you and Sergeant Buchanan,
So So an officer loses his life, and the first place you go is Jennifer McCabe's house. Not even the scene of the crime. Okay.
How long a period of time was it that you were with Sergeant Buchanan on that day of January 29th?
From 10 a.m. approximately, we met at Canton Police Department until we returned to the Canton Police Department that afternoon around 5:30 in the afternoon. So all day. We also had a debrief meeting with just the troopers in my office at Canton PD. So at least from 10 to 6, 7, because we also went back to the office with some evidence.
And so from that entire time, from 10 in the morning until later on at night, other than maybe short drives in individual cars, were you essentially with Sergeant Buchanan that entire day?
Yes, we used Sergeant Buchanan's pickup truck that entire day. I left my personal vehicle at the police department, and I rode with Sergeant Buchanan all day into the evening.
Now, from the Canton Police Station, where did you and Sergeant Buchanan go?
The McCabe's house in Canton.
And who, if anyone, did you speak with it?
We spoke with Matthew and Jennifer McCabe, as well as Brian Albert.
And those interviews that you conducted, were they how were they conducted?
One-on-one, Sergeant Buchanan and myself kind of rotated out Jennifer, Matthew, and Brian. So first we interviewed Jennifer, and then once that was completed, we had her step out, go to a separate room, brought in Matthew, and then the same thing with Brian.
And for the balance of the interviews that you conducted several interviews over the course of your investigation in this case, is that correct?
Correct.
And for those interviews, as far as individually done, was that primarily what you did with each of the people that you interviewed over the course of the investigation?
Yes, each interview conducted was either with Sergeant Buchanan or another trooper in one-on-one, with the exception of Julie and Chris Albert, I believe, were in the same room as us.
Now, with respect to...
So the parents of the kid who allegedly may have started something that turned into an altercation, a physical altercation, the parents of that kid, they didn't separate. And we have some conflicting reports slash testimony. So in early reports from the Commonwealth, it did state that Chris and Julie were at 34 Fairview Road that night, and they went there after the waterfall just like everybody else. However, Julie and Chris both testified that they went straight home. Julie went home first, she said, because she had a migraine, and then Chris went home. And then shortly thereafter, Colin walked in the door and said, "Good night, parents. I love you. You're such great parents. And I'm such a lucky kid." Because who believes that he comes in and says good night and kisses his mom and hugs his dad goodbye, whatever their BS story is. He's this punk little kid who's trying to start fights with the what boys? The something boys. Can't remember. So like a whole hockey team he wants to fight. I don't know. It's crazy. So, anyways, yeah, they didn't separate his parents, who also potentially may have been at 34 Fairview Road, but now they're testifying that they were never there. So that's another problem in this whole investigation.
I believe you just answered it, but as far as each of the interviews that you conducted over the course of your investigation, was it at any point in time, was there an interview that you conducted just by yourself?
There was just one.
And who was that one that you conducted by yourself?
That took place just at the grand jury across the street. It was the Currans. I had some difficulty locating them, so when they appeared for grand jury, I interviewed them one-on-one by myself prior to their testimony at grand jury.
You had attempted to meet with them prior to them coming to the grand jury, is that correct?
Yes.
And they had not been responsive to that?
Correct.
However, they were responsive to the summons, and so you interviewed them before they went into the grand jury, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Other than those, as far as Mr. and Mrs.
I'm just interjecting to say there are no captions. I would put them on if they were available for this video, but it doesn't seem to have captions. So I apologize for that. It's a little difficult to hear Lolly. It's best to listen to this trial period with some kind of earbud, headphone, something or other, because the attorneys don't always speak into a mic, and it's hard to hear them.
Harlan, every interview that you conducted was in the presence of at least one other trooper?
Correct.
Now, as far as you mentioned one name that we hadn't discussed before at the McCabe household, a Brian Albert. Prior to January 29th, 2022, had you ever met or were you aware or did you know Brian Albert?
And I met Brian Albert until that interview.
Now,
And that's lie number at least one, if not two, because he said before he didn't know any of the witnesses, which I have a hard time believing that he didn't know Jen McCabe and potentially even Carrie Roberts, because this group all hangs out together. I don't know if Proctor hangs out with them, but Proctor is good friends with the Alberts. And so this is a lie. He's going to explain it away like, oh, my sister is friends with them. But later he says his sister's his best friend. So there's absolutely no way that he doesn't know or hang out or associate with the Alberts. If his sister is great friends with Nicole Albert, there's no way that he doesn't hang out with them too. And they all know each other, grew up together. It's very icky feeling.
Following the interviews that you conducted at the McCabe household, where did you go from there?
After the interviews at the McCabe household, Sergeant Buchanan and I traveled to Good Samaritan Hospital for two reasons. One, we knew Miss Reed was there receiving treatment for Section 12. And two, we wanted to view Mr. O'Keefe.
And when you arrived at the Good Samaritan Hospital, was the defendant, Ms. Reed, still at that facility at that time?
We spoke with the security staff at Good Samaritan Hospital. They informed us that Miss Reed was released.
I'll allow it, just as to where you went.
That Miss Reed was released several hours prior to our arrival.
And do you know about what time it was that you arrived, yourself and Sergeant?
Why? I don't know why they needed to know where she was or if she was there, or I don't know. I guess to question her, but they didn't even really, I mean, they do sort of, but not really.
Mechanic at the Good Samaritan?
Maybe approximately 1 o'clock.
And you mentioned there was a second reason, and that was to view Mr. O'Keefe, correct?
That's correct.
And in your application, did you have a chance to view Mr. O'Keefe's body at the Good Samaritan?
We did.
And where was that within the hospital?
That was in the emergency room.
And when you went to where Mr. O'Keefe was, can you describe for the jury what, if any, observations you made of Mr. O'Keefe's body at the time that you observed?
Opening a window here.
The first thing I noticed on Mr. O'Keefe is he had abrasions on his right arm. On the top of his right arm is approximately 6 to 8, ranging from his forearm to his lower bicep. There was no injuries underneath that forearm. Both eyes were swollen and black and blue. He had a cut on, I believe it was his right nostril. Another smaller cut, I believe it was on his left eye. Those were the injuries that kind of jumped out to me.
At any point in time, did you make any observations of the back of Mr. O'Keefe's head while you were there?
I did observe blood on the back of the head. I wasn't able to tell if there's any significant trauma to the back of his head.
Now, from the Good Samaritan Hospital, yourself and Sergeant Buchanan, what, if any, items did you secure in evidence from the Good Samaritan Hospital?
So after we viewed Mr. O'Keefe's body, we observed a pile of clothes in the corner that hospital staff had cut off Mr. O'Keefe and kind of piled into the corner. The one thing that had jumped out to both of us was one sneaker. And it's fairly common in a motor vehicle pedestrian strike that...
Sustained. Next question. I'll strike from fairly common. The observations will remain.
As far as the clothing that you observed, can you describe the clothing that you observed?
Yes. We observed one black sneaker with a Nike logo, a pair of blue jeans, a belt, boxer shorts, an orange T-shirt, and a two-tone gray, light kind of hooded sweatshirt type of material.
Now, Trooper Proctor, over the course of your career responding to unattended deaths or death investigations as a member, as a detective of the unit, how many of those have involved situations where a pedestrian was struck by a motor vehicle?
Well, I've been in the unit, maybe 3 or 4, and then I've other experiences on the road.
And as far as the other experiences on the road, can you expound upon those as far as how many or over what time period we're talking about?
About 6 years I spent on the road, so maybe another 3 or 4.
And with reference to those pedestrian crashes, what, if anything, have you seen in those prior investigations in regard to sneakers or footwear of pedestrians involved in motor vehicle crashes? Objection.
I'm going to see you at sidebar on this.
All right, we got a sidebar. I just love saying it that way. I'm looking for, so Karen was arrested February 1st and she was arraigned the 2nd. So 2 days after John passes, they arrest her. I was looking at this updated timeline from Sleuthy Goosey, and so the MSP, Massachusetts State Police, on February 2nd, they apply for and receive a warrant for Karen to search Karen's iPhone, which this matters because we're going to talk about when he does start searching her phone and stuff. But so she was again, the crime takes place January 29th, or the incident. We'll call it the incident because we don't know what happened. Well, we do, but January 29th, this happens. Moving into the 30th, which would be Monday, Trooper Proctor and Sergeant Buchanan went and interviewed Canton firefighter Katie McLaughlin, who we did an episode on her testimony and how she couldn't remember anything when the defense started asking her questions. Interesting how that works. All right, so then we get camera footage from John's cell phone. Investigators review video from the 2 Ring cameras attached to John's house. That was January 31st. So that's 2 days later. And then Karen is arrested the next day, the February 1st. This is crazy. Okay. And then also on February 1st, Trooper Proctor and, oh no, sorry, Trooper Buchanan and Trooper Keefe. So not to be confused with Officer O'Keefe, there is a Massachusetts State Police or trooper by the name of Keefe, not O'Keefe, just Keefe. So the two of them traveled to CF McCarthy's, Buchanan and Keefe, and they spoke with the bar manager and reviewed surveillance footage and got receipts. And then Karen is arrested shortly thereafter. And then just after that, same day, like this is all the timeline in the same day or same couple of days here. So now we're on February 1st. All this is happening. Um, and then according, I don't know what time it is. We don't have the call log time, but we know that Trooper Michael Proctor's sister, Courtney, texts Proctor, just saw Julie, and Julie said when all this is over, she wants to give you, Michael, a gift. And Trooper Proctor responds to his sister, get Elizabeth one, meaning his wife. So, and then February 2nd is when the warrant to search her phone comes in. But I'm looking through this, and at no point in time I'm looking through this timeline. I don't know if we just haven't said it or what, but or when it happened. But Trooper Proctor never gets a warrant to seize her things. As far as I know, he just takes them. So how is that possible? Sorry, I had to interrupt for that because it's important. It's important that police follow rules. You're supposed to get a warrant and then you seize the items. You can't just take things. This is our amendment rights. These are why they exist because we have we have rights and freedoms in this country, and law enforcement can't just say, "Well, you look guilty, so I'm going to look through your things and I'm going to take it." That's not how the law's supposed to work around here.
Involving motor vehicles. What, if any, observations have you made on those prior occasions in regard to the footwear with respect to the pedestrians in motor vehicle crashes?
In those experiences, I've observed one, if not both, pieces of footwear remained at the point of impact.
And so with respect to your observations of the clothing, there only being one sneaker in Mr. O'Keefe's property, what, if any, significance did that have to you as far as the sort of steps you took subsequent in your investigation?
That was just a little piece of evidence that Sergeant Buchanan and I picked up that only one piece of footwear revealed the potential of a vehicle strike.
Now, in addition to, Sergeant Buchanan is one of your supervisors within the detective unit, is that correct?
Yes.
And there's another one, a Lieutenant Brian Tully.
That's correct.
Now, with respect to the one sneaker that was found in Mr. O'Keefe's property, what, if anything, with regard to that, did you communicate to Lieutenant Tully?
Objection. As to how it goes to the investigation?
Yes.
I'll allow it.
Sergeant Buchanan and I informed.
So Buchanan, he works for Buchanan and Tully. I'm not exactly sure now because I thought Buchanan was under him or they were at least like on the same level. But I guess Buchanan is Trooper Proctor's boss, and they both report to Tully, I think, or something along those lines. I know at least Tully's above Proctor, but I don't know if he's above Buchanan. I imagine he's a lieutenant, right? So he should be.
DLT Tully that there was one shoe at the hospital.
And with respect to Detective Lieutenant Tully, are you aware that subsequently in the afternoon that there was a search that was conducted in the area of 34 Fairview Road where Mr. O'Keefe was found?
Yes.
And are you aware of what, if anything, was recovered in the area where Mr. O'Keefe was found on that day?
I'll allow witness to the investigation.
Yes.
And what are you aware?
We were informed, Sergeant Buchanan and I were informed that CERT team and Detective Lieutenant Tully discovered a black Nike sneaker with a white swoosh logo that was a match to Mr. O'Keefe's shoe at the hospital.
Now, from these items of
From
clothing,
those feds. I commented in Melanie, I think it was Melanie Little's chat. I'm like, wouldn't it be great if, as we're just all sitting here watching, the feds came in and took him right at this moment? Like that would be something we've never seen before in trial, I don't think. But I mean, they know where he'd be here, so they could easily come and serve him while he or arrest him while he's on the stand for his crimes.
Trooper, in addition to the shoe that you've already referenced, what, if anything else, did you observe about what kind of clothing and the condition of the clothing that you observed at the hospital?
The clothing seemed it was wet. It was pretty well saturated. The right sleeve had some cuts to it, like tears to it. There's blood and vomit on it, if I recall. Those were the observations I had made of the clothing. And they had been cut due to rendering first aid as well, the pants area.
Now, subsequent to viewing these clothing items at the hospital at a later time, did you have occasion to observe surveillance video from a variety of places on the evening of January 28th into the early morning of January 29th depicting Mr. O'Keefe?
Yes.
And what, if anything, did you note with regards to the clothing that you observed at the hospital and the clothing that you observed in the video?
So the videos I reviewed at C.F. McCarthy's bar and the Waterfall bar were the same clothes Mr. O'Keefe was wearing that Sergeant Buchanan and I had secured at Good Samaritan Hospital.
You mean the pile of clothes that were thrown on the ambulance floor and then the hospital floor before they were ever bagged up? Ones that have been cross-contaminated with who knows what? Those clothes?
Now, Trooper, I'm going to ask you some questions just in regard to securing these items specifically as evidence, but in general terms as far as securing items and evidence within your unit. How is that accomplished? How is that done? What do you do with items that you deem of evidentiary value that you then secure?
Generally, if we take an item for evidence, we'll put it in a brown paper bag, document it, time, date, who secured that item, address, where it's discovered, and then we'll bring that back to our office, to the evidence processing area. From there, it'll go to a permanent evidence room that has triple retention. It has an actual key, a key card, and an actual access code, and only 3 members of my office have access to that room, the 2 evidence officers and Detective Lieutenant Tully.
And at this time, in January 29th, 2022, who was assigned as the evidence officers who had access to that room?
So that'd be Trooper David Achico and Trooper Jeffrey Kukowski.
Remember those names. Those names, I think, are real tight buddies, or at least they run in the same circles. DeCico or DeChico, however you pronounce it, he comes up again, or they both come up again.
Did either yourself or Sergeant Buchanan have any access to that evidence storage?
No.
Now, with reference to these items that were seized and, say, items that were seized subsequent during the course of your investigation, did they go through that same sort of evidentiary storage process that you were speaking about before?
Yes.
Now, with reference to, in addition to the clothing items, at some point did you come into possession and seize Mr. O'Keefe's phone?
Yes.
And do you recall where it was that you received or retrieved Mr. O'Keefe's phone from?
We received it at the Canton Police Department.
And was that prior to you going to the Good Samaritan?
After, I believe.
So following the Good Samaritan, where did you go from there?
So after the Good Samaritan Hospital, Sergeant Buchanan and I traveled to 345 Country Hill Drive in Dighton.
And why did you go to that location?
That was the residence of Miss Reed's parents' home, and having a brief conversation with Miss Reed on the phone, she informed us she was at her parents' house.
So you had called Miss Reed, spoken to her, and informed her that you were coming there to speak with her, correct?
Correct.
And just as you had done with Ms. McCabe, Mr. McCabe, you spoke to Ms. Reed within her home?
Yes.
And who, if anyone else, did you reach out to on your way there with regard to local law enforcement as you were driving?
So remember, he just answered the question. He went there just to talk to her, just to talk to Karen.
To Dighton?
contacted the Dayton Police Department just for a couple of reasons. One, it's a common courtesy if we're in another town, we just kind of give the local PD a heads up. But also we needed to coordinate a plow truck and potentially a tow truck as well.
And why did you need to coordinate those things?
At the time, there must have been at least a foot of snow on the ground, more. And it was a dead-end cul-de-sac, so which was made it difficult to navigate. So we requested the plow to clear a path for Sergeant Buchanan and I to get down the roadway, as well as clear the driveway of the residents, so the tow truck could pull into the driveway.
Now, as far as the drive from Good Samaritan, that's in Brockton, is that correct?
Yes.
As far as the drive from the Good Samaritan Brockton to the defendant's parents' home in Dayton, about how long a drive was that, and how would you describe the weather conditions along the way?
Yeah, the weather conditions were whiteout, high winds, blizzard conditions. We had to travel very slow. It was almost about an hour to get there.
And when you arrived there, you're in Sergeant Buchanan's truck, is that correct?
Correct.
And where did Sergeant Buchanan position the truck in relation to the house at 345 Country Hill?
From what I recall, Sergeant Buchanan went down the cul-de-sac and turned around, and he actually had to let me out first because of the high snowbanks, and then he parked kind of along the snow, pointing essentially to Mr. Reed's house.
And at some point, did members of the Dayton Police come along and join?
Yes.
And do you recall who those people were?
I believe one of the officers' last name was Baros or Barrios.
And had you ever met that officer before?
No.
Now, with respect to the home, had you and Sergeant Buchanan approached the home at any point prior to the Dayton Police showing up?
I can't recall if... No, they had arrived first before we approached the home.
And when you approached the home, you went, what did you traverse? How did you get from the street to the home?
We walked down the driveway, and then we observed Mr. Reed's Lexus parked in the driveway, the front of it facing one of the garage doors. That's when we observed the broken taillight on the right side of the vehicle. We then proceeded to the front door. The snow was about up to our waist, and knocked on the door and was greeted by Mr. Reed.
The snow was up to his waist, guys. It was that bad. We've seen pictures, but apparently it got real bad, so much so that the snow was up to his waist. But in subsequently, as Adam Lally likes to say the word subsequent to whatever, subsequent to that, oh my God, I can't with these people. They're so insane.
As you're walking up the driveway towards the home, you see Ms. Reed's vehicle, is that correct?
Yes.
And that's a vehicle that you later subsequently found to be registered to Ms. Karen Reed, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Now that I pointed out the subsequently, Adam Lally, you're probably going to notice it if you didn't already.
Yes.
So I'm showing you documents, 4 pages in length, just ask you to review that if I'm finished. Do you recognize that document, sir?
Yes.
What do you recognize it?
The Registry of Motor Vehicles, it's the certified document for Miss Reed's Lexus.
And is that the plate information that's contained in there, is that the same plate that was affixed to Ms. Reed's vehicle on that day?
Yes.
And that also details sort of the history or how long she's had possession of that vehicle, is that fair to say?
Correct.
Going back to, I believe, 2021, is that correct?
Yes.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'll let the seeker introduce and admit as the next exhibit.
No objection.
Is that correct?
Yes.
And
Oops.
now, with respect to point you to go into the house, is that correct?
Yes.
Sorry.
Now, with
Skipped
respect to Ms. Reed, at some point you go into the house, is that correct?
Yes.
And how do you enter into the defendant's parents' home?
So Sergeant Buchanan and I, after we knocked on the front door, Mr. Reed directed us around the corner, opened up the garage door for us, and invited us in.
Now, if I can take you back to, I'm sorry, just as far as when you're coming up the driveway and you're passing by the defendant's vehicle, you mentioned some damage that you observed to the right rear passenger side area, is that correct?
Yes.
Can you describe to the jury what it was specifically that you observed as far as damage to that area of the vehicle?
Yeah, the right rear taillight had large pieces missing from it.
That's not at all what Baros said. We just heard it. Baros was right before him. So Adam Lally's own witnesses are competing with one another with what they're saying. They're not jiving. They're not making sense. So it's up to the jury to determine who's truthful and who isn't. And I don't think they're going to find this guy to be very truthful or trustworthy.
So you proceed inside the home, and where is it that you're directed, and where is the defendant?
We're invited into a large living room area. Miss Reed is seated on a couch, and her parents, William and Janet, are present for the conversation and kind of standing off to the side.
And that conversation goes on for approximately how long?
Approximately half hour, 40 minutes.
And when you terminate that conversation, you come back outside of the home. Is that correct?
Yes.
And where is the vehicle at this point?
That is being put on the tow truck.
Now, in addition to the defendant's vehicle, what, if anything else, was taken and seized as evidence from the defendant on that one?
After confirming the phone Miss Reed was holding was in fact hers, we told her we were seizing the phone and we'd be writing a search warrant for that.
We told her we'd be seizing the phone and we'd be writing a search warrant for that. So they didn't even have a search warrant for it, and they took it. That's what he just admitted on the stand. So listen again. I'll slow it down so you can hear it in real time.
Where's the vehicle at this point?
That is being put on the tow truck.
Now, in addition to the defendant's vehicle, what, if anything else, was taken and seized as evidence from the defendant on that morning?
After confirming the phone Miss Reed was holding was in fact hers, we told her we were seizing the phone and we'd be writing a search warrant for that.
Took the phone without a search warrant. And I'm assuming the car as well. I mean, anything after that, shouldn't it be fruit of the poisonous tree because you didn't go through the proper channels of how to investigate a crime? Even though you're a trooper with the MSP, you should know how to do that. But I guess not.
Now, during the course of the conversation that you and Sergeant Mechanic had with the defendant that afternoon at her parents' home in Dayton, were there some questions in relation to contact information for other people that were at bars or different establishments the night before?
Yes, we asked Miss Reed specifically for some of the friends that Mr. O'Keefe was with at C.F. McCarthy's. One person in particular was Michael Camerano. So we observed Miss Reed enter the passcode on her phone, retrieve Mr. Camerano's.
We observed Miss Reed enter the passcode on her phone. He just admitted that on the stand. So what you're saying is you purposefully watched her enter her password so you could seize her phone illegally without a warrant and look through it. Yep, that's what he just admitted to.
Phone number for us provided to us, and that just further confirmed that was her cell phone.
Now,
Unbelievable.
your training experience when a cell phone is seized from a person, what, if anything, is it that you do with regard to that cell phone to preserve the information on?
Well, first thing we do is we put it in airplane mode, and then we give it to a cell phone expert in our office, Trooper Nicholas Garino, and he essentially tries to access the data in that phone once a search warrant is obtained.
Now, as far as
But aren't you supposed to put it in a Faraday bag first so that no updates and nobody can go in and change anything and all that stuff? Aren't you supposed to do that? How was it the phone preserved? Did they, you know, legitimately not look through it? I doubt it, but okay.
putting that cell phone in what you described as airplane mode, what is the purpose of that?
It's to avoid if someone wants to go on a tablet or a laptop and access the information on their phone and they can start deleting stuff off their iCloud. This prevents that.
So you secure the phone, you secure the vehicle on the tow truck, and then where did you and Sergeant Mechanic go from there?
We followed the tow truck from the address in Dayton to the Canton Police Department. We're secured in the Sallyport Bay.
And if you know approximately what time was it that you arrived at the Canton Police Department and secured the defendant's vehicle in the Sallyport Bay?
So we left Dayton around 4:16 p.m. and arrived in Canton at the police department at approximately 5:31 p.m.
And with reference to the Canton Police Department's Sallyport garage, why was the vehicle taken there?
I wasn't part of that decision, but it's my understanding that it was a heated facility. The other options were, I believe, the barracks in Milton, but that's not large enough to house a vehicle that size, and it's not heated.
So they were. Right.
And in regard to the heated, what was the sort of purpose or utility of storing it in a heated setting?
Remember, Canton is recused from the case because Kevin Albert, brother of Brian Albert, the homeowner of 34 Fairview Road, is a Canton police officer and works under Berkowitz, who comes into the story also a little bit later. Chief Berkowitz, Kevin Albert works for. And it seems like good old Berkey is good friends with Brian Higgins, who is also good friends with the Alberts. It's just very close ties between everybody.
Miss Reed's vehicle was covered with snow and ice at the time. It was transported from Dighton to Canton.
And with regard to the Sallyport garage area of the Canton Police Department, at some point were you inside that area?
Yes.
And what, if any, observations did you make as far as the temperature or the heating within that facility?
I don't remember the exact, I couldn't put like a ballpark on temperature, but it's certainly warmer than outside.
Now, as far as the vehicle was concerned, either on scene, either in Dighton or at the Sallyport garage, or at any point in time that you were in the presence of that vehicle, what, if any, contact did you have? What, if anything, did you do or observe Sergeant Mechanic to do with regard to that damaged area you described on the right rear passenger side?
Sergeant Mechanic and I never touched any part of that vehicle.
And as far as the moving it from sort
I think that's another lie, but okay.
of the tow truck into the Sallyport area, how was that accomplished?
The tow truck driver removed it from the tow truck and pulled it into the Sallyport Bay.
I think that's also a lie because on Sergeant Buchanan's first day of testimony, when he was asked on cross who the individuals were on the mirrored video, the one that's incorrect because it's showing us the driver's side mirror, it looked like, somebody got out of the car, came, took a picture around, the front of the car, and then I don't know where they went. They kind of left the screen. But on the first day, Buchanan said that was him that was getting out of the car on the passenger side of the vehicle, which no, it was really the driver's side. So because they mirrored it, they gave us a mirrored version of actual events to purposely fool us, I think. Anyways, so in that video, Trooper Proctor, he identifies Trooper Proctor and himself. The next day, he's like, I don't know who those people are. I can't tell. So there's a lot of that going on with these folks, these witnesses.
Now, as far as prior to leaving that Sallyport area of the garage where the vehicle was, what, if anything, did you and Sergeant Mechanic do with reference to securing that vehicle or coordinating it off in any way, shape?
We tried to set up a perimeter as best we could using caution tape, just kind of sectioned it off with caution tape.
Now, at some point, you leave the Sallyport area of the Canton Police Station, and where did you go from there?
We had a debrief meeting, so there's other troopers. There's troopers at scene on 34 Fairview Road. There's other troopers conducting interviews. So at the end of the night, members of my office met in a conference room at the Canton Police Department to exchange information as far as what everyone had learned throughout the day.
And as far as that meeting is concerned, that's just troopers from your unit, from your office, is that correct?
That's correct.
And so there were no members of the Canton Police Department that were present for that, is that correct?
No, correct.
And do you know why that was?
They had taken a step back from the investigation. They weren't going to participate in any interviews or anything of that nature.
They're not going to do any interviews, but you leave evidence in their Sallyport? Okay.
And how was that communicated to you and Sergeant Buchanan?
The best of my recollection was that debrief meeting that we were informed that essentially Canton PD would be taking a step back from the investigation and that now this is just solely a Norfolk State Police investigation.
So before we get to sort of the debriefing and all that's covered in that, as far as when you're on call, you get a call for any kind of sort of homicide or unattended death or anything like that. You then become what's called a case officer for that investigation, is that correct?
Correct.
And can you just
Case officer, this comes in again. This is BS. He's the lead investigator, and all of a sudden they want to change titles and play around with words to call him a case manager.
describe for the jury sort of what the duty or the role is of the case officer vis-a-vis
Case
the
officer,
rest
sorry.
of the members of the unit?
So essentially, a case officer is more of a facilitator. You kind of delegate out tasks, coordinate interviews.
He's just a facilitator. He's not the lead investigator. He didn't have a huge role in taking Karen down and getting her arrested and arraigned and all that. He didn't have any part in that. No, he just coordinated things. Give me a break, buddy.
The case officer isn't the sole decision maker. I have supervisors. I have that we bounce ideas off of. I get feedback from. I also keep them updated. It's a collaborative effort in each investigation. We're a small office, so when a homicide comes in, everyone essentially drops what they're doing, and we all work on it together. So it's a collective effort to work on these cases. And essentially, a case officer is just kind of the record keeper of all the.
Do you buy this excuse of what his role was in this investigation? I do not.
reports that come in and video that comes in. But when it comes down to decision-making time, it's a group effort.
Now, with reference to that collaborative effort that you were just discussing in this sort of debriefing meeting, so there were other troopers doing other things or other tasks throughout the course of the day of the 29th, correct?
Yes.
And so what was sort of the purpose of or not specifically what was discussed, but in general terms, what was discussed during the course of this debriefing?
The taillight piece is found at 34 Fairview Road by CERT. The one sneaker found at 34 Fairview Road. Interviews conducted, and then your Sergeant Mechanic and I has shared everything we had, kind of learned throughout the day as well.
And that debriefing meeting, if you know about how long approximately did that take in this case?
I can't recall, maybe half hour.
And so following that meeting, where did you go from there?
The Sergeant Mechanic and I had secured some evidence, the clothing from Good Samaritan Hospital, the additional sneaker found at 34 Fairview Road, as well as the taillight pieces discovered at 34 Fairview Road, and Mr. O'Keefe's cell phone.
The taillight pieces that didn't start revealing themselves until they already had Karen's SUV in their possession for 90 minutes. And again, it's like a 40-minute drive, I think, for Dayton to Canton. So where was it for the rest of that time? What was happening? Where's that section of video that I'll bring it up in a second. Where's that section of video that we know is missing? So there's two cameras actually. Hold on one second. Okay, sorry. So this is the video that we saw that was mirrored. Microdots, and we went over it in one of my episodes. I think it was 2 before this one. So we went, or no, it was the last one. Sorry, I don't know. Anyways, so Microdots did a really good video. They repositioned it to the right orientation, and then they also looked at all the different cutout times that were in the video. So if you look, there's times that are 1:50. There's times that are just a few seconds. And yeah, the longest was 2 minutes and 47 seconds in the sallyport video that we saw. So there's actually 2 videos, and there's the one that we saw from. So that was on the wall where the antique car where it says, police on it, where we see it backwards. That's actually the wall. We're seeing the camera that's nearest that, because then you've got the car beyond that. So there's actually, if you kind of reverse your orientation, think about it that way. So if you're looking, if you're back here where the car was, you know what? There's got to be a better way to explain this. All right, so here we are. I just put on the screen the microdots video. Let's just watch it because I have it. And you'll see how they orient things differently. But if you look where we're at, so the camera obviously is on the wall closest to this car. But this is what I was trying to say. There's also a camera over in this corner, right where the car is parked, but we don't have it. It's missing about 40 minutes of video, which is strange in and of itself, but it happens to be some video where we see some people, particularly Michael Proctor, standing behind the car. So we'll get to that, but here, let's just watch this real quick.
Why did Karen Reed's left side tail light appear damaged in the flipped video presented by the Commonwealth? We have no record of anything ever happening to that side of the SUV. Yet, somehow the damage in the flipped video seems to closely resemble the damage presented in the police photographs taken later.
That's what they're claiming. Okay, so this is perfect. I was looking for this photo and I couldn't find it. This is a photo that was taken in the sallyport after supposedly not even supposedly, alleged after Michael Proctor was back there, because we know he was back there, because even Buchanan said that was him. He was back there in the video. So this is not taken on the 29th, but days later, this photo. So someone could have gone in there and done something to her vehicle.
We needed to find out if any white light radiates from an undamaged Lexus LX570 under any condition. The taillights from 2016 through 2021 models are identical.
That's what it's supposed. Okay. So that is what it is supposed to look like when it is not broken, not damaged. That's how it's supposed to light up. And actually, we did not play this particular video on my channel before. I'm just realizing this is a totally different video that they're focusing on the taillights. So let's see what they say.
There's no white light.
No white
White
light.
light gonna be only if you put it in reverse.
Can you put it in reverse and not move it?
Oh wow, you still don't even see the white
So that's in reverse.
because the lights are back here.
No white
on
light.
The lights, the reverse lights are on the plate. Whoops. On the license plate, or near the license plate. You can see it's lighting up right there.
So that's in reverse.
And that's reverse. So even in reverse, you don't see white in the taillight.
No white light. Is there any other way it would change? No?
What we're seeing here makes no sense. None of that white light can be explained without damage. This is the SUV as seen by the jury weeks ago. The left side is pristine. A portion of the white light just flickered off. There is no function of the lighting system that accounts for that to happen either.
All right. I hope that this audio isn't gonna strike my channel. Anyways, yeah, isn't that something? So the light just changed and shifted.
Watch closely here as the white dot tracks with the movement of the officer as he moves in front of him.
Oh my god, did you see that?
You're invited to draw your own conclusions.
It's the ghost of the sallyport. Oh my god, I can't even. This is crazy. Whoops. Okay. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Crazy. Oh wow. Okay. So that was love microdots videos. Those are awesome videos and very educational, and somebody, that's the dog. She probably wants a, oh no, she just wants a blanket on her. All right, so let's continue on. So isn't that something? It appears, and what microdots is getting to is that it appears that that video of the sallyport was not just reversed, mirrored, and there's not just sections missing, but now there's also things that are happening to the good tail light that shouldn't be happening. And it definitely appears like somebody is making it seem like that is the damaged tail light. It could very, very easily be someone manipulated that footage. Since we already know it's been somewhat manipulated, because they said that they got, or Buchanan said that he got it from Canton PD in that reversed orientation, and that's just how he received it. So everyone's just gonna pass the buck to somebody else in this.
Phone and misread cell phone, and him and I transported those to the office in Canton.
And when you transported them to the office in Canton, what, if anything, did you do with those items?
The two cell phones were given to Trooper Nicholas Garino, and The clothing was laid out on top of butcher paper to dry out in our evidence intake area. And then the bag taillight pieces were set aside in the evidence intake processing area. Sergeant Buchanan and I didn't have access to the permanent evidence locker area, so we just secured them in the temporary intake area.
And that leads me to my next question. As far as the area that you're talking about with regard to the clothing items and the other items that you secured beyond the cell phones, that was in a secure area of your office, is that correct?
Correct.
And by secure, I mean restricted access to the troopers within your unit, correct?
But no, it wasn't because we heard from Brian Higgins that pretty much everybody had access to the sallyport, and all you needed was just a key card, and it's like a cut through from one office area to the other. So everybody goes that way. So it's not really restricted when everybody has a key card. It's monitored, but it's not restricted. You can say it's restricted because people without a key card don't have access, but everyone in the building has access. So it's not really restricted.
Correct. It's you need a key card, and it's also equipped with an alarm.
Now, following that, as far as these items of evidence and other items of evidence that are seized throughout the course of an investigation, how is it that they go, or what, if anything, is done, if you know, between the time that they go from this temporary storage area to the permanent storage area?
Yeah, I'm not an evidence officer. I never have been. My understanding is once it's in the evidence processing area, it gets put into the permanent evidence room that only, like I said, two troopers and the detective lieutenant have access to. And it's the evidence officer's responsibility to process that material when they see fit.
Now, sir, if I could turn your attention to February 1st of 2022. Were you working in regard to this investigation on that day as well?
Yes,
And at some point, did you have occasion to go back to the Canton Police Department, specifically in the Sallyport garage area?
I did.
And what was the purpose of you going out to the Sallyport garage on that?
Pursuant to a search warrant, we were processing Miss Reed's Lexus SUV.
And when you say we, who, if anyone else, was present with you, or who, if anyone else, did you contact in reference to the processing pursuant to that search warrant of the defendant's vehicle?
So we had a chemist from the State Police Lab, Ms. Maureen Hartnett, as well as a trooper from Crime Scene Services, Trooper Zachary Clark. And then later in the day, the accident recon team, Trooper Joe Paul, had arrived as well.
Now, if I could just ask you a couple questions in regard to Crime Scene Services section. Can you describe for the jury sort of what their role is in regard to investigations that you do and how they're sort of contacted?
So in any scene, if it's required for it to be documented, Crime Scene Services will arrive. They'll document the scene with photographs. In more serious situations, in a homicide, for instance, they'll actually take video as well as dust fingerprints.
Now, with respect to this particular investigation, there were a number of different areas or different times when Crime Scene Services was contacted to document things, correct?
Yes.
And that would include a Good Samaritan when you observed injuries to Mr. O'Keefe?
Correct.
That would include the autopsy that was performed on Mr. O'Keefe?
Yes.
That would include February 1st in the Sallyport garage when the search warrant was executed on the defendant's vehicle?
Correct.
That would include subsequent searches that occurred at Fairview Road, is that correct?
Yes.
And
February 1st, the search warrant was done on the car. Okay. So they took it the 29th and they got a search warrant 2 days later for it. Why didn't they seize it then? Where's the seizure warrant? Doesn't make any sense to me.
with respect to each of those instances, if you know, was it ever the same trooper from Crime Scene Services section that came out and memorialized each of those respective areas?
Yeah, it was a different trooper each time.
And is that something that you or any member of your unit has any control over whatsoever as far as who shows up from Crime Scene Services to memorialize or document a scene?
No.
Now, with respect to the search warrant execution on February 1st, what I want to ask is between the time that you were in the garage on January 29th, 2022, and the time that you're there for the search warrant execution on February 1st, had you been in that Sallyport area of the Canton Police Station at any time in between?
No.
Now, with respect to the taillight area on the passenger side of the defendant's vehicle, what, if any, differences or what, if anything, did you note sort of between your observations of the taillight on the 29th versus your observations on February 1st?
Yeah, the only difference from the 29th to the 1st was snow and ice had melted from the taillight.
So as far as the condition of that particular taillight, was it in essentially the same condition that you observed it on the 29th when you observed it on the 1st?
Yes, it was still broken and large pieces missing from it.
And some more lies on the stand. We heard from Officer Baros it wasn't completely damaged. It's only missing one piece.
But as far as the broken status of it and the pieces that were missing, was it any more broken or any more pieces missing from it when you saw it on the 1st versus when you saw it on the 29th?
No.
And with respect to the taillight housing for that vehicle on that particular day, what, if anything, happened with it on that day, if you know?
The state police chemist, Ms. Hartnett, had it removed, which she brought to the lab herself.
So she had it removed it herself, and then physically took it with her when she left to the lab?
Yeah, it was with the assistance of a Canton police officer who had an auto body shop, so he was kind of well versed in cars, so he was able to assist the chemist with removing the housing unit.
Now, at any point in time on that day of February 1st, 2022, did you come into contact physically or otherwise with that tail light? Did you handle it in any way, shape, or form?
No.
Your Honor, if I may, with the court's permission, I would request to publish. Give me one moment, Your Honor. Publish portion of Exhibit 34.
Okay.
The sallyport video. Ms. Gilman, if I could have from February 1st, 2022. At approximately 9:12 a.m.
This video is the other angle that I was talking about that is missing 40 minutes. So this is the other sallyport video front wall. It says 9:10:53 a.m. and this is February 1st. And there's 40 minutes missing. There's an area, a time where there's a time jump where it's missing. And they're blaming it on motion. It's motion activated, but you can see motion and things happening in the video beforehand. So I'll let you guys decide on your own.
You can just pause it right there. Okay. Your Honor, if I may, it may be easier and more visible with this particular video with the lights on.
Okay.
Try that.
Sure.
So it's also terrible footage. Can't really see what's happening. You can see blue things here, whatever that is. This is Karen's car. You can see the tape right here. And you can see the old classic police car there. But you can't really tell much else. There's a person standing here. It's hard to tell, but there's a person standing here. And I bet there might be some more activity right around this area in this video.
Trooper Proctor, directing your attention to what's up on screen is Exhibit 34. Do you recognize what's depicted on screen?
Yes, that's the Sallyport area, Canton Police Department, and Miss Reed's Lexus kind of roped off with yellow caution tape.
And this is the execution ad search warrant that you were speaking about before, as far as your presence and some of the other members of the state police and state police lab that you were talking about.
Correct.
And Ms. Gilman, if you could run it from here for just a minute.
They're taking photos.
So while this is going, if I could just ask a couple questions, as far as people within this video, do you recognize anyone in this video?
Yeah, myself, kind of the top of the screen. Trooper Zach Clark, we the one with the camera taking photographs of the vehicle.
Now, with reference to this video from the Sallyport Drive of Canton Police Department, what, if anything, did you learn over the course of this in regard to how that video is recorded, or how it's, what, if anything, sort of activates that video?
Objection. Ask it differently, Mr. Ryan.
Yeah,
As far as
objection.
this video is concerned, is this one continuous time frame that we're looking at, or how is it?
Objection. Sustain.
My understanding, it's motion
That
active.
means you can't answer.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You can ask it differently.
I'm not sure there was anything said.
No.
Oh, all right. I'll strike if there was anything. But, Mr. Lally, just ask a question, please.
With respect to this video, as far as the recording is set up, how is that activated, or how does it record?
Objection. Same question.
Yeah. How does he know that? It's sustained.
Have you watched this video or other videos from the Canton Police Department, Sallyport Drive?
Yes.
What, if anything, did you note with regard to timing? As far there's a timestamp on the video, is that correct?
Yes.
And what, if anything, did you note with regard to the timestamp on this video or the other videos that you observed with regard to how time moves throughout the video?
Let's see the timestamp.
The timestamp on the video tends to pause, indicating it's motion activated.
It tends to pause. I'll strike after that.
It's not pausing, it's jumping. It's not a pause, it's a jump. A jump in time.
About 9:24.
I wish Boston 25 would take that down when they're doing exhibits. Can't see.
Ms. Gilman, you can take that. Thank you very much. Now, Trooper, with regard to that taillight that was then taken by Ms. Hartnett to the lab, is that correct?
Yes.
And at some point, that was returned to the custody of the state police, your detective unit.
Correct.
And do you have that taillight housing with you today in court?
I do.
And Your Honor, with the court's permission, if the trooper could retrieve that.
Okay.
Doesn't prove anything.
Sir, you can stay right there.
So
Do you recognize that? And as far as indicating what's contained therein.
it's the tail light. Big surprise. Okay, I'm gonna just fast forward through the opening of it because it takes forever. He's gonna show the tail light, and here. Oh, I went too far.
Thank you, sir.
What does that prove?
Trooper, you can go ahead and put that back in the box. Thank you very much.
Doesn't prove anything.
Right, folks, we're going to mark the bag within the box. Nancy, 4A. We're at 544A.
I'm talking about remarking it and whatnot.
Essentially, the condition that you observed it in both on January 29th and February 1st.
Yes. Yes.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, if I could ask just to publish what's been marked as Exhibit 147.
Okay.
Trooper Proctor, do you recognize what's up on the screen that's been marked as Exhibit 147?
Yes.
What do you recognize that to be?
That is the right tail light of Miss Reed's Lexus SUV. You can see large pieces of it are missing.
And again, is that the same condition that you observed it both on February 1st as well as January 29th, obviously minus the snow and the ice?
Yeah, minus the snow and ice, sir, yes.
Thanks, sir. Ms. Newman, you can take that down, Mr. Officer. You can have the lights back up. Thank you.
The material used for these taillights specifically is virtually indestructible. You have to do something to its chemical properties in order to actually shatter it. So if Michael Proctor was back there trying for 40 minutes to shatter it or whatever, it could take some time for them to figure out how to manipulate the properties of it so that they could actually make it look like it was shattered so they could plant taillight pieces. So that's just another argument in Karen Reed's side saying it's very difficult to break those taillights, and for her to back up and for it to miss one piece, I mean, that's more indicative of it not being very, it's a very hardy material. So it wouldn't just break and shatter into 47 pieces at the scene, or if she really did hit him, which is no, she didn't hit him with her car backing up in reverse, whatever. It was not an accident. She didn't do it, period. End of story. The evidence does not prove it. The FBI, their own experts, said her car didn't hit John, and John's injuries didn't come from her car. So I don't know how much clearer people want to be about it, but I'm not going to mince words. She didn't do it. Come at me in my comments. I don't give a F. If you're rude, you get deleted and blocked, and oh well, I don't care. All right, so I mean, come here and talk about the case. Don't come here to be like rude and pick apart everything that I say. Just because you feel a different way. If you feel a different way, that's fine. You're allowed to your opinions, but I don't want misinformation spread on my channel. And I don't have the time or the moderators to go through and make sure that people aren't spreading misinformation. So I don't have the luxury to say, yeah, whatever. And then if you're a troll or I think you're a troll, that's all I'm saying. You're just going to get deleted. That's all there is to it. I've been having issues because of this trial. Everyone is like, oh my God, you're so stupid. She did it. She's guilty. She should burn in hell and all this stuff. And it's like, okay. But don't come to my channel and spread misinformation. That's all.
Now, if I could turn your attention to February 3rd of 2022. In the morning hours of that date, where did you go in regard to this investigation?
Sergeant Mechanic, Trooper David Achico, and myself went to 34 Fairview Road along with Trooper Evan Brandt from Crime Scene Services to essentially dig out the snow in pursuit for more evidence.
Now, as far as you mentioned, as far as dig out the snow in pursuit of other evidence. What, if any, tools or implements did you and the other troopers bring with you in order to effectuate that on February 3rd?
We just had kind of standard snow shovels.
And with respect to that, as far as going back to 34 Fairview Road, and let me clarify as far as that's concerned. Prior to that date of February 3rd, 2022, had you been to 34 Fairview Road at any point in time in the course of your investigation?
No.
So that morning of February 3rd, that's the first time that you went?
Correct.
Now, with respect to...
It was the first time he's ever been at Brian Albert's house. I don't believe it, but okay.
Is that, how many times did you go to the area of 34 Fairview Road over the course of the next days and weeks in regard to potential recovery of items?
So February 3rd, I retrieved items on the 8th, the 11th, and 18th, and we was out there on the 10th with Sergeant Mechanic as well.
These are all these undocumented searches where he just drives past the house and finds more pieces of taillight. And as days go on, the pieces get bigger, which make no sense at all. When you have found the bigger pieces, they also found a bunch of glass and taillight pieces that didn't belong to Karen's taillight. So I don't know what they were doing, but something's fishy.
Now, as far as any of those occasions that you just described, that you went to the area of 34 Fairview Road, on any of those occasions were you by yourself?
No.
And with respect to those other occasions, what type of people or who was with you? I know you mentioned on the 3rd, but beyond the 3rd, those other occasions that you described, who was with you?
On the 18th, I believe it was Trooper Chico, based on the handwriting on the evidence bag, kind of recognized his handwriting. In the other 2 dates, I don't recall who was out there with me.
Now, with respect to items that were located, starting with the 3rd, do you recall specifically what, if any, items were located on the 3rd?
We located a black drinking straw, consistent with the one seen in the waterfall video of Mr. O'Keefe walking out of the bar hole.
That's impossible. This should have been struck from the record. You don't know that he was holding a glass with a stirrer. You don't know that. And it could have been a coffee stirrer from anybody or a drink stirrer from anybody. So you don't know that it came from John's glass. So I don't know how he's allowed to testify that it was. But okay.
In the glass. We located his hat that had the American flag. That was deep underneath the snow. As we were digging, we discovered that. We further discovered other pieces of plastic as well.
Now, as far as these return trips on successive dates to 34 Fairview Road, what was the reasoning behind that, or what was sort of the plan in reference to why were there so many different dates that you returned to 34 Fairview Road with other troopers?
So after the 29th, there was close to 2 feet of snow that had fallen. And in the days and weeks that had followed, the temperatures ranged from 30 degrees up to 60 degrees. And there was about a half a dozen days mixed in of heavy rain. So as the snow started to melt, more evidence started to present itself.
More evidence started to present itself. Evidence just reveals itself out of thin air in Canton.
Items that you recovered on the 3rd, and then items you recovered on successive dates that weren't visible or you didn't see on the 3rd, correct?
Correct.
Now, if I could...
Ridiculous that
on
we're
February
supposed to
3rd, you
buy
mentioned
this.
that there was Trooper Evan Brent that was present with you during the search on that day as well?
Yes.
Now, in addition to going to 34 Fairview Road, where else did yourself and Trooper Brent go on that particular day?
We traveled to One Meadows Ave, Mr. O'Keefe's residence.
And is that the first time that you had been to One Meadows Ave, Mr. O'Keefe's residence?
Yes.
Now, with respect to that residence, why is it that you and Trooper Brent went there on February 3rd?
We wanted to document Mr. O'Keefe's vehicle to show that there was no damage to it, as well as the garage doors.
And why did you want to document that?
During the review of Mr. O'Keefe's ring video, particularly the one above the garage that displays the driveway, on the 29th at approximately 5:07 a.m., Ms. Reed pulling her vehicle out of the garage door, backing up towards Mr. O'Keefe's vehicle, and comes extremely close, if not slightly hitting the vehicle. So we want to at least go document that there was no damage to Mr. O'Keefe's car.
So they admit that she got close, if not maybe hitting the vehicle. So they went there to go check if there were taillight pieces.
And Your Honor, with the court's permission, if I could publish that for the jury as far as what's been marked as Exhibit 6, Video 153.
Okay.
This ring video, how was this obtained, if you know?
By the way, I just want to say the latest theory by the anti-Karen Reed people is that she purposely hit John's car in the morning while she's frantically searching for him because he didn't come home and she's terrified that something happened to him. She decided that she was just going to purposely hit John's car so that, the damage that she from really hitting him earlier in the night, she just cover that up. Are you are you people mental? You anti-Karen Reed people? I mean, I know you are, but this is insane, the sick things that you're coming up with and how you're turning and twisting everything. It's disgusting.
So we first observed it through Mr. O'Keefe's
I'm worked up. I'm sorry. I'll stop talking so much.
cell phone on the Ring app, and then I wrote a search warrant for Ring itself.
And as far as the videos that you received from Ring, did they match what was on the, or what was viewable being the Ring app on Mr. O'Keefe's cell?
The videos on Mr. O'Keefe's app, yes, it was what Ring produced, matched.
So as far as any videos that were present that you received pursuant to the search warrant, or any videos that were not present, that was consistent with what you observed on Mr. O'Keefe's app on his phone?
Yes.
Now, Ms. Gilman, if you could press play through here. Now, Trooper Proctor, with regard to this video, you've seen this before, is that correct?
Yes.
Now, at the point from this video, are you able to discern who the operator of that vehicle is?
Based off the attire, Miss Reed driving.
How does he
Now,
know that? You
with
can't see
respect,
her.
To when that vehicle, the defendant's vehicle, if you could, there's a laser pointer out there in front of you on the desk. If you could, I would just ask you to draw the jury's attention to what many vehicles you observe in this video and whose vehicles you believe them.
So right there, it's Mr. O'Keefe's vehicle and Miss Reed's vehicle.
Now, as far as when those vehicles come close or come into contact with each other, as far as Mr. O'Keefe's vehicle is concerned, what, if anything, do you observe like on Mr. O'Keefe's vehicle at the time?
There's some snow. You can see on the back window here, the bumper and the windows here is starting to be covered in snow.
And as far as when that vehicle comes close to or makes contact with Mr. O'Keefe's vehicle, what, if anything, do you observe the snow come off of the car at that point?
I do not know.
What
Now,
if
with
any
reference to the back area of Mr. O'Keefe's vehicle, specifically in the area of the ground,
What if anything do you observe the snow falling off? That's his question. What if anything do you observe the snow falling off his car? Lolly. Get rid of the what if anything and the subsequent to.
as far as that area on the ground, what, if anything,
The
do you
sort
observe
of.
in reference to any red pieces or any pieces of taillight or plastic or glass or anything in that area that you observed on this video?
So this area here is, you can see the white snow. There's no red pieces of taillight, which would show up in the contrast of the white.
And I beg to differ. I have dogs, and I have picked up their you know what many times in the snow. And guess what it does? As soon as it drops into the snow, it goes boop. It sinks. It's not going to be sitting right on top of the snow. If there's a piece of tail light that fell off of her car, it's going to sink into the snow. No one's going to see it. And it probably got shoveled or somebody used the snowblower over it. And it's somewhere in this vicinity over here by the fence, is my guess. But what do I
Snow.
know?
Ms. Gilman, if you could run from there for a moment. Now, as far as the damage area that you were discussing previous that you observed in the January 29th in the Sallyport, February 1st in the Sallyport, and then the item that was just marked as evidence, what, if anything, do you observe in the right rear passenger side taillight area of the defense vehicle from this video?
You can see the inconsistent lighting. If you compare it to the left versus the right, there's a gap right there.
And from what you observed from that video, does that appear to be consistent with what you observed on January 29th at Canton Police Department, February 1st, and in the item of evidence that was just marked?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Gilman, you can take that down. Mr. Officer, we can have the lights back on. Thank you.
But where's the 2-minute video from the Canton Library that is missing that would show her driving home from 34 Fairview Road and a cracked taillight if she had hit him there? We don't see that because for some reason there's 2 minutes of video missing from the Canton Library surveillance that would have shown it if somebody didn't delete it. And I'm just going to leave it at that. I think somebody deleted it on purpose. Those 2 minutes, just like the 40 minutes of the Sally
Now, sir, you
video.
proceeded to One Meadows Ave for the first time on February 3rd. Is that correct?
Correct.
And Trooper Brent from Crime Team was with you and took some photographs. Is that correct?
Yes.
May I approach?
Yes.
I'm worked up. Sorry, guys. I know this case gets me really fired up.
Trooper, I'm showing you a set of 10 photographs. Ask you to view those. Look up when you're finished. May I approach, Ron?
Yes.
I'll seek to introduce and admit as the next 10 exhibit.
Okay.
Photograph 7752. Trooper Proctor, do you recognize what's up on the screen? It's now marked as Exhibit 546.
Yes, Mr. O'Keefe's Chevy Traverse vehicle.
And with respect to this particular foreground here, if you could describe to the jury what we're looking at there.
So that is Mr. O'Keefe's driveway. You see two garage doors there that lead into the house. And above those garage doors is the Ring camera.
Now, with respect to the rear of Mr. O'Keefe's vehicle, from your viewing of video from Exhibit 6, from the Ring video, video number 153, if you could, using that laser pointer, direct jury's attention to where it is on this vehicle that there's contact, if any, between this Reed's vehicle and Mr. O'Keefe's.
It would have been in this general area here.
How does he know?
As far as your observations on that date,
What's the, hold on. Okay.
How does he know? Did he do the research and find out how tall her tail light is versus how tall his light is from the ground? How does he know where it would hit? They keep using their witnesses for expert testimony that they're not qualified to testify about. Making me mad. Now what? Did they do a sidebar?
Observed the driver's side rear area of the vehicle.
I didn't observe any significant damage or any damage.
As far as the entirety of the vehicle, that was all photographed on that day by Trooper Brent, is that correct?
Yes,
And memorialized in those photographs that were just sent to you, is that correct?
correct.
As far as your observations on that day or in those photographs, what if any damage did you observe to Mr. O'Keefe's vehicle?
I did not observe any damage.
And Coach John?
Yes.
So there's another 8 photographs that I placed before you. Have you had a chance to review those?
Yes, sir.
And do you recognize what's depicted in those 8 photographs?
Yes.
And what do you recognize those to be?
More photographs of Mr. O'Keefe's vehicle as well as the garage doors.
Got a man approach?
Yes.
I'll see if you can the next 8 exhibits.
No objection.
I want to know if Proctor actually searched the area for taillight at John's house, or if he was just going off the video saying like, well, you can't see anything there, so nothing fell off. Because that's what I think he just did. I don't think he actually went there and looked. If they actually went there and looked, there might be a piece of taillight in that driveway. Well, I don't know now, but it could have been then. They actually investigated.
Here as well.
Okay.
Ms. Yeoman, if I could have. Trooper, do you recognize what's depicted on the screen now? It's 559.
Yes.
And if you could describe to the jury what we're looking at in 559.
It's the rear bumper area of Mr. O'Keefe's vehicle,
That's the driver's side and passenger side.
the driver's side.
And what, if any, damage did you observe in that area of the vehicle on February 3rd when you were there?
No damage.
With respect, Ms. Newman, if I could have photograph 7780. Next one, actually. And sir, do you recognize what's up on the screen and what's now been marked as Exhibit 560?
Yes, those are the two garage doors of Mr. O'Keefe's house.
Okay, why do we
Yeah.
care about the garage doors?
Specifically February 8th, 11th, and 18th. Did you have occasion to return to 34 Fairview Road on those days?
I did.
And you had mentioned a little bit about sort of changes in the weather. What, if anything, sort of evolved as far as the weather was concerned between the dates of February 3rd when you were there and February 8th, 11th, and 18th?
Yeah, as I mentioned, the weather pattern had kind of fluctuated from 30 degrees up to 60 degrees with a handful of days of heavy rain mixed in, so that caused a lot of snow to melt as well.
And with respect to each of those respective days of February 8th, 11th, and 18th, what, if anything, did you observe or recover, you and the other troopers that were present on those days?
Yeah, there's further evidence that was originally buried under the snow because of the warm temperature and the rain and the snow melting kind of revealed itself, more pieces of plastic, clear and red.
Now, with respect to the residence at 34 Fairview Road, each of these times that you were at the residence, including February 3rd, where in relation to the house were these items observed and recovered by you and the other troopers on those respective days?
So if you're looking at 34 Fairview, looking at the front of the house, it's to the left side of the property between like the flagpole and kind of the fire hydrant, that general area, the front and left of the property.
Now, with regard to these 3 subsequent dates, as far as February 8th, 11th, and 18th, these items that were observed and recovered on those dates, where were they in relation to the roadway? Where were they in relation to the hydrant, the flagpole, other sort of markers in the area?
I don't specifically remember exactly if they were around the flagpole because the search team had came and shoveled an area around. So that stuff had melted first because there was a lot less snow, and then they created more piles. But as far as the general area was by the flagpole and fire hydrant, it wasn't like on the other side of the property. It was in that general area.
And just with respect to those items, were they generally found, or were they specifically found either on the grass or the roadway area?
Grass area.
Asphalt or grass is basically what
I'm sorry, grass area.
And with regard to each of those items that were recovered on those 3 successive dates, as far as February 8th, 11th, and 18th, did you bring those items with you to court today as well?
I did.
May I approach you?
Yes.
Evidence bags.
Of course, Commission made the witness
Skip through.
bag. What, if any, indication is there?
A small piece of red plastic and one piece of black.
Please remove those.
More pieces of taillight. Who cares?
Seized on February 11th.
Still plastic. Cut that open as well.
I think that's sufficient.
All right, so Canton Cover-Up.
What was that?
The small bag and hair containing the glass. Cut that open as well.
It's a littler bag containing
Small bag and hair containing the glass. Cut that
glass.
open as well.
I think that.
Okay, so it's the glass.
Now, from the front lawn area of 34 Fairview Road, is that correct?
Correct.
And what was just displayed to the jury is that essentially the condition that they were in when you recovered them on those respective dates.
Yes.
Now, if I could turn your attention just briefly regarding the search warrants in regard to the ring video from Mr. O'Keefe's house. Was that one search warrant or more than one search warrant that you did in respect to those ring videos?
There was a second search warrant for the ring videos for Mr. O'Keefe's house.
And if you recall, what was the general time frame that was asked for in that warrant as far as from what date to what date?
The second one, I believe, was January 30th to the 3rd or the 4th, I believe.
Was the first one essentially from the 24th to the 29th?
Yes.
Now, with respect to the video that you received in regard to the first search warrant to Ring, what kind of information did you receive from Ring as far as what beyond sort of the video itself? What, if any, other information did you receive as far as accounts or activity or anything like that?
It was just confirming that the user account was under Mr. O'Keefe's email, and then there was an Excel file where you kind of have to transcribe. So that each video has about a 17-digit number associated with it, unique identifier. You take that 17-digit number, and you got to convert it using these Excel files to get the date and time.
Now, with respect to what you received pursuant to the search warrant from Ring, was there any kind of activity log? And what I mean by that, what, if any, information did you receive as far as what sort of devices or how many different devices were able to access that footprint?
Yeah, I wasn't able to obtain a activity log of who was using the device, what device was accessing the system. Something, if someone logged in, was not provided with any record of who was logging in and what day or time.
No? So he didn't get a log. That's interesting. Remember that.
Now, are you familiar with the term, just as far as
From Ring
videos are
camera.
concerned or electronic devices, what's referred to as a digital footprint?
Yes.
Now, with respect to some of these, or the Ring videos in totality that you received and that you also viewed pursuant to the app on Mr. O'Keefe's phone, were there certain time periods where you would have expected to see video in which there was no?
Yes.
And can you describe for the jury sort of when those time periods were?
So the Ring camera above Mr. O'Keefe's garage is pretty sensitive, so it does not have.
I want to remind you, Karen did not have access to the Ring camera app or program. John, the children, the niece and nephew that John was raising as his own. I mean, he was raising them since they were like toddlers. The kids said that he offered them all access to be able to view the Ring camera, and everybody, including Karen, denied it. So the kids even said Karen didn't have access to it. But there's videos from that morning that are missing, like when Karen arrived home, and other video, like when she arrived home from 34 Fairview Road, and some other videos. So that's interesting that some videos had been deleted. Wonder why. And he just testified that he did not receive a log of who did what and if anybody was entered in. Also, they had John's phone, and John's phone had the app to access the Ring camera footage. So I think they tried to delete all the Ring camera footage from that morning, or at least, multiple time frames from that morning, to make it look like she maybe deleted it, but really to hide her taillight. I think they missed one on accident, and that's the one that we get to see her actually hit John's car. By a miracle, it survived, I think, so that we know that's when it happened.
Miss Reed arriving back at Mr. O'Keefe's house around 12:34 a.m. is approximately was when she should have arrived. The only video, there's a gap from approximately 11:45 p.m. on the 28th to about 5:07 a.m. on the 29th when Miss Reed's backing out and never has her pulling into the garage. And there's also a second video of Miss Roberts, Miss McCabe, and Miss Reed looking at the broken taillight in the morning.
Oh, so that video, remember when Jen McCabe was like, yeah, so we got out of the car right when we got to 34 Fairview Road. We looked at it because Karen said, I have a cracked taillight. And they all looked at it. And according to Jen McCabe, and now it was shattered. But in her original statement, she said it was cracked. So they all did say that it was cracked and missing a piece. And now it's like shattered and missing all these pieces. People's statements and testimony have evolved quite a bit in this case.
What, if any, follow-up or inquiry did you make of Ring in regard to those missing videos?
I inquired several different times as far as if a video is deleted, is there some type of a record?
That was his inquiry, but next question, I'll allow that.
Now, as far as that term that you used before, as far as a digital imprint, can you explain to the jury what you understand that term to mean?
Essentially, a digital footprint is if a video is created, it's going to leave some type of a record in the archives.
And what, if any, information did you receive from Ring as far as their videos system is concerned in regard to a digital footprint?
Not what anybody told you, but what you received.
That if a video is deleted,
The objection sustained. We're going to strike that.
Upon your further inquiry of Ring, were you
He's trying to imply that Karen deleted it. We don't know that for sure. And actually, we could probably maybe conclude that Karen didn't delete it, but somebody else did because she didn't have access to the Ring camera. And John's phone did. And John's phone was in police custody.
ever able to obtain any video from those specific sections where you anticipated video would be?
No.
Now, sir, if I could turn your attention to January 16th, 2024. Do you recall that date?
I do not, sir.
At some point over the course of your investigation, were you made aware of forensic evidence in relation to the taillight housing that was introduced earlier as an exhibit?
Yes.
And with respect to that, at some point, did you have occasion to meet with a Sergeant Brian Gallerani of the Needham Police Department?
Yes.
And where was that?
In the DA's office.
And who, if anyone else, involved in this investigation as far as yourself, was Sergeant Mechanic with you there as well?
Yes.
And what, if anything, did Sergeant Gallerani do with respect to yourself and Sergeant Mechanic on that date in January of 2024?
Sergeant Mechanic and I voluntarily provided our DNA for comparison testing.
And again, taking me to my next point, that was a voluntary decision that both you and Sergeant Mechanic made as far as availing yourself or availing of that particular test.
Correct.
And as far as the testing of this, do you know how that
Why? I'm confused. Why are they doing a DNA test? Let me go back.
involved in this investigation as far as yourself was Sergeant Mechanic with you there as well?
Yes.
And what, if anything, did Sergeant Gallerani do with respect to yourself and Sergeant Mechanic on that date in January of 2024?
Sergeant Mechanic and I voluntarily provided our DNA for comparison testing.
And again, taking me to my next point, that was a voluntary decision that both you and Sergeant Mechanic made as far as availing yourself or availing of that particular test.
Correct.
And as far as the testing of this, do you know how that was, or can you describe to the jury sort of how that sample was collected or how it was conducted?
Essentially, it's just a swab of the mouth under the tongue with like it's basically just like a little pad on a stick, and he gets swabbed, and that's how the DNA or saliva is collected.
And as far as those samples that were collected from both yourself and Sergeant Mechanic on that particular day, where did they go from there as far as you know?
It was my understanding went to the Bodie lab in Virginia.
And I'm sorry, what I should have asked as part of that, as far as when they left from the room that you were in with Sergeant Gallerani, did you take those swabs, or did Sergeant Gallerani take those swabs,
No.
or where did they go?
Sergeant Gallerani took possession of those items.
Thank you, sir.
Why was there DNA needed for
Now,
analysis
sir, with reference,
or comparison?
over the course of your investigation, you interviewed a number of different witnesses, correct?
Yes.
And from the witnesses that you, were there witness interviews that were conducted outside of your presence in the sense that you weren't there for those particular witness interviews?
Yes.
And each of the interviews that you're aware of, whether they were conducted by you or outside of your presence, were done, with the exception of the currents, done with more than one trooper present, correct?
Correct.
Now, with respect to those witness interviews that you were present for, from the witnesses that you spoke with, along with other troopers that were present with you, who, if any, of those witnesses had you met, or did you know prior to the interview that you conducted?
Yeah, so all the witnesses that I interviewed, the only individuals that I know or met prior to this investigation was Julie, Chris Albert, and Colin Albert.
And how is it that you knew Julie Albert, Christopher Albert, and Colin?
So my sister coordinated her friend growing up, Jillian. Jillian's sister's Julie. My sister got to know Julie Albert, Julie Daniels, her maiden name, through her friend Jillian. Julie married Chris Albert. So my sister got to know Chris through Jillian and Julie. And then years down the road, my sister had Julie babysit my nephew. Julie would come from time to time and pick up my nephew from school. So that's how they kind of became friendly. And on occasion, they would be over at my sister's house or at my parents' backyard, Julie and Chris and their kid Colin, and I would happen to be there.
And Colin.
Yep.
Let me ask you this way: as far as where did you grow up?
Canton.
And did you graduate from Canton High School?
Yes.
And as far as any of the witnesses that you interviewed, even the Alberts that you were just talking about, Christopher, Julie, and Colin Albert, were they around the same ages as you, or went to high school with you at the same time?
No.
How much older than you would Julie and Chris Albert?
At least 10 years.
And as far as Colin Albert, what's the age difference between yourself and him?
At least 20.
Fair to say around the
Basically trying to say, well, we weren't friends because we weren't in the same age groups, which is bull because his sister was in that friend group. So by default, that might make Proctor in that friend group if he hangs out with his sister and her friends.
time of January 2022. Do you know how old Colin was, or what level of school he was at that point?
It was senior high school, I believe.
Is that something that you learned through this investigation, or something that you knew independently?
Something I learned through this investigation.
Now, obviously, you grew up in Canton, and your sister did as well?
Yes.
And your sister's name is Courtney, is that correct?
Correct.
And what is the age difference between yourself and your sister?
She's 2 years older than me.
And how close are you and your sister?
She's probably one of my best friends. We talk about 5-6 times a day about anything and everything, as far as like mostly our children.
And she has how many
5,
children?
6 times a day.
You got 2.
And about how old are they?
10 and 7.
And you have children as well?
I do.
And how old are they?
2 and 4.
Now, with respect to the conversation that you have with your sister about 5 or 6 times a day, how do you have those conversations? Is it via voice call or in person or text, or if you know?
Everything, FaceTime, phone calls, text messages. We're always kind of keeping each other up to date on mainly our kids.
Now, as far as Julie and Christopher Albert, when did you interview them in relation to this incident?
Sometime in February. I'd have to look at my report for the exact date.
Sometime in, say, early to mid-February?
Yes.
And with respect to them, who, if anyone else, was present with you when you interviewed them?
Sergeant Buchanan.
And do you recall where the interview took place?
Yes, I was at their home.
Now, prior to this date that you went over to interview Christopher and Julie Albert, had you ever been over to that house before?
No.
Had you ever been over to any home where Christopher and Julie Albert had resided, then or previously prior to that date?
No.
Had Christopher or Julie Albert, to your knowledge, ever been over to your house?
No.
Now, with respect to Christopher and Julie Albert, and Colin Albert, will throw him in there as well, how would you sort of describe your relationship with them prior to January 29th, 2022?
I classify it as acquaintances.
All right. Mr. Lally, why don't we take our lunch?
Here we go with the acquaintance BS again. All right, but they're going to take a lunch break. So we'll skip forward. Here we go.
Julie Albert and Christopher Albert prior to January 29th, 2022.
Loose acquaintances?
Acquaintances.
People that you knew through your sister, is that correct?
Correct.
Now, with reference to the occasions that you had said where you may have been at the same place at the same time at a family function or something like that, over what period of time are we talking about, and about how many different instances of that occurred over those years?
Like I mentioned, they had never known my house. It was either at my sister's home or at my parents' house. Over the course of maybe 10 years, I might have been at the same function half a dozen times.
And at those times that you were at the same function a half a dozen times or so, how much interaction did you have with either Christopher Albert or Julie Albert or even Colin Albert at those functions?
Just casual conversation, be cordial, and just typical conversations, hi, how's it going, things of that nature.
Now, with reference to these experiences or relationships, or lack thereof, that you had with Christopher and Julie Albert, what, if any, conversations?
Wouldn't just the fact that his sister alone, who he's best friends with, is also best friends with the Alberts, don't you think that alone is enough of a bias? Because he loves his sister, so he's gonna already be biased in his investigation, regardless of whether he's friends with the Alberts or not. So I don't think that that matters, honestly. I mean, I do believe that he is friends with the Alberts. I think they're lying about that. But even if he isn't, his sister's best friends with them. So, and he's best friends with his sister. So there's no way that he wouldn't already kind of feel like, oh, I gotta help my sister's friends out, you know?
Did you have with your supervisors as far as superior officers within your unit in regard to this?
I explained the connection or with my sister to the Albert family.
And who did you explain that to?
That would be Sergeant Mechanic, Lieutenant Fanning, and Detective Lieutenant Tully.
All right, Trooper, I'm going to ask you to keep your voice up. Maybe approach the microphone a little closer.
And just with respect to those disclosures, what specifically did you tell either Sergeant Mechanic or Lieutenant Fanning or Lieutenant Tully?
Basically, that the Alberts are my sister's friends. That I've been at some functions with them, and the only kind of connection with the Albert family is through my sister.
And just when you say the Alberts, as far as who specifically within the Alberts are you talking about that had a friendship with your sister?
Julie, Chris, and their son Colin.
Now, with regard to the investigation that you were conducting and the interviews that you conducted, what, if any, impact did those relationships have with regard to your interviews of them specifically or the investigation in total?
Zero. Absolutely zero impact on this investigation.
Bull.
You want to approach?
Yes.
Oh boy, what's he got?
It's a text message thread
Things are
labeled
gonna get
Proctor
interesting.
Friends.
Now, over the course of
This is a text message thread between Proctor and friends. And here's where it's going to get really interesting and repulsive at the same time.
your investigation over the course of this case, you're aware that there were iCloud data that was obtained from your personal cell phone
Yes.
and different text strings
From the feds.
from that iCloud data from your personal cell phone, correct?
Correct.
And with respect to what has just been placed before you, is that an excerpt or piece from those particular messages?
It is.
And from the front page of that, can you tell the jury who are sort of the participants in this particular text communication?
There's several numbers that aren't identified. The three that are under kind of nicknames me and my buddies have for each other.
And generally speaking, just as far as the participants in this text communication, who are these people to you and how do you know them? How long have you known them? Who are they?
The members on this text thread are close friends from junior high, first grade even.
So people you've known for years, is that correct?
Correct.
And do each of them live, or do any of them live within the general area at this time?
Some of them do, yes.
And so when some of them do, some of them do not, is that correct?
Correct.
And the ones that do not, how far away do they live?
As far away as Tennessee.
Now, with reference to this, there's an indication as far as the first message sent or last message sent from this particular text chain, correct?
Sorry, repeat the question, please.
Sort of towards the middle of the first page. Help direct your attention to that area. Is there any indication as far as the first message sent and the last message sent with respect to this text chain?
On the first page, yes.
And what is indicated as far as the first message and the last message?
The first message is I need to brandish a gun more often. The last is Chip, name of that BPD cop.
No, I'm sorry, sir. If I could direct your attention to the first page in this packet, page 2527. Do you see conversation details?
He doesn't see it.
See what I was talking about now?
I do, sir.
And from that area labeled conversation details, there's a first message sent date and time and a last message sent date and time, correct?
Yes.
Okay. What is the first message sent date and time?
It's 10/18 of 2021 at 8:48 a.m. The last message sent is 8/31/2022 at 11:19 p.m.
And is there also within that conversation details an indication as far as the number of messages over that time frame within this communication?
There is.
And what does it list for number of messages?
It's 38,707.
The fair to say the packet that
moly.
you have before you does not contain all 38,707 messages, correct?
That's correct.
The first message that you had, I believe, alluded to in reference to the first one listed within
He keeps squinting his eyes. He needs glasses. I know because I do it too.
this communication. What date and time is that?
That was January 29th, 2022 at 10:36 p.m.
And who is that message from?
My friend who lives in Tennessee.
And what, if anything, did he send to the group?
I need to brandish a gun more often.
And if you know, what is that in reference to?
He just recently moved to Tennessee, and he was kind of, I think, making a joke as kind of the lifestyle down there where guns are more prominent or more common to be carried around there. So I interpreted that as a joke in that nature.
Mm-hmm.
And the next message, sir, from that same page, 2527.
The next one is it's bold.
And is there a name associated with that number that's in these?
No,
Do you know who that person is?
I don't.
And the next message, sir, from 10:52 p.m.
Chip, name of that BPD cop.
And Chip, who is that referring to, sir?
That is one of my nicknames I've had since maybe high school.
So a nickname that would be familiar amongst these group of friends in particular?
Yes.
And this time period when these text messages begin, sometime after 10:30 or 10:50 p.m. on January 29th, where are you and what are you doing in reference around that time period?
At this point in time, on the 29th, I'm home.
And that last text message, do you respond to that at approximately 10:53 p.m.?
Yes.
And what was your response?
John O'Keefe.
And the next message down from there, also at 10:53 p.m.?
Yes. He took custody of his sister's kids.
That's your response. There's another response above that, is that correct?
Yes.
And what does that say?
How old?
And you respond as far as he took custody of his sister's kids, correct?
Correct.
Skipping down a couple, you see an entry at 10:53:49 p.m.?
Yes.
And that's from a 617 number, is that correct?
Correct.
And what is the response there?
Oh man, that's rough.
And following that, do you respond to the earlier query as far as age?
I do.
And what did you say?
Mid-40s.
Now, the next message below that, as far as indication of mid-40s, what is that?
His age.
No, I understand that. I'm sorry. The next message underneath that, sir.
I'm sorry. It's a Facebook link.
And do you recall what that Facebook link is to?
It's to John O'Keefe.
And is that something you sent or one of your friends sent?
One of my friends sent.
And the next message below, turning to now page 2529 at the top there, what is the next message that's sent?
What's that? Don't have the book anymore.
And as far as the book, what did you understand that to mean?
Sure.
And now there's going to be a long sidebar. I think they even go to break. Yeah. So we come back here.
The objections.
I responded with, she waffled him.
Wait, hold on. Okay.
Cop and the homeowner.
Correct?
Correct.
And what is it that you respond?
My first response was nope. Homeowner is a Boston cop too.
I didn't go back far enough. Here we go. That's gross.
Proceed, John.
Yes.
Trooper, if I can direct you back to page 2529 within that packet before you. And below that text stating what's that, I don't have the book anymore. You respond, is that correct?
Yes.
And what is it that you say there?
This one is a nightmare. Forget about the kids. That's awful.
And sir, if I could direct your attention again within that same packet to 2532. And there's a message there sent at 10:56 p.m. Is that correct?
Yes.
And who's that from?
A friend who lives in Tennessee.
And what does he say in that text?
I'm sure the owner of the house will receive some shit.
And you respond at 10:56 as well as 10:57. Is that correct?
Correct.
And what is it that you respond?
My first response was nope. Homeowner is a Boston cop too.
And what, if anything, were you saying, or what was the purpose of that text in regard to the homeowner?
I was just letting him know that essentially Mr. O'Keefe is a Boston cop and the homeowner was a Boston cop as well.
Now, if I could turn your attention to 2533.
But the question was, I'm sure the homeowner is going to receive some heat or something along those lines. And he said, nope, because he's a Boston police officer. That was your answer. Let's be clear of what you're actually saying. Let's not try to mislead the jury.
And top of the page, sir, if you could read through that page as far as who's texting and what do they say?
Again, for my friend from Tennessee and myself, I hope not, but I can't see it. I responded with, she waffled him. I looked at his body at the hospital. He was banged up.
Now, as far as the next text from a 781 number, what does that say?
Did he get beat up?
And you responded to that, is that correct?
I did.
The objection is sustained as to form.
What, if any, response did you provide to that?
Nope.
Objection. The objection was to form a question and answer.
I'll strike it.
Now, turning your attention to 2534. And from this page, sir, if you could, again, just read through as far as indicating to the jury who's speaking and what is being said?
From the start of the first text, so the owner of the house?
Yes.
So the owner of the house was a woman cop that beat him? That's what I initially thought after talking to Canton paramedic. Then I saw the guy.
And those last two are your responses, is that correct?
Yes.
Now, the following text messages are from your friends, is that correct?
Yes.
What do they say?
Bear, let's focus. What does she waffle to mean? What's the story? I responded, she hit him with her car.
And the she that you're referring to there, who is that?
Miss Reed.
Now turning your attention to the next page, 2535.
This is like right after it happened, and there was no investigation. So how do you know she hit him with her car?
Again, if you could start at the top of the page and read through that page and just indicate to the jury who is talking and what is being said.
Okay. My friend in Tennessee states, okay, that's fucked up. I respond, intentional or not. Then another response, gotcha. He was frozen in the driveway and she didn't see him, question mark. That's another animal we won't be able to prove. And then I respond, they arrived at the house together, gone to an
I don't speak out loud or out of turn.
The objection's overruled.
Your Honor,
But
if I could say this, there needs to be an identifier of who's
I
speaking.
understand what you think the mix-up is. So, Mr. Lally, go back.
Thank you.
Sir, if you could please, again, start at the top of the page and just indicate.
No, just after the gotcha, he was frozen in the driveway, correct, Mr. Jackson?
That's correct, Your Honor. Thank you.
I respond, that's another animal we won't be able to prove. I follow that up. They arrived at the house together, got into an argument. She was driving and left. 781 number responds with, what's the name of the Canton cop living in Canton, the other one involved.
And how do you respond to that, sir?
There's several other messages before I issue a response.
Objection again. Bottom of the page.
So it's not an objection, but Mr. Lally, why don't you point him?
Got into an argument, she was driving and left. Correct. Correct.
And what is that response?
They arrived at the house together, got into an argument, she was driving and left.
Objection.
So it's going to be a matter you can address on cross.
There has to be some accuracy. The reading
So I understand. So, Mr. Lally, why don't you go point for your witness?
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
It's a HTML link, whiteout / Proctor iCloud / group chat Feb 2022. Is that how you point it?
Can I see what you have for a second, please?
Show your witness.
Bottom of page 2535, excuse me, 2535, you indicated 15th, correct?
Correct.
And what did you mean by that?
That Miss Reed had struck Mr. O'Keefe with her vehicle.
Now, sir, if I could direct your attention to page 2537. Now, do you see a response toward the bottom of the page from yourself, January 29, 2022 at 11:04 p.m.?
Yes.
And can you read that response to the jury?
Yeah, but there'll be some serious charges brought on the girl.
And what did you mean by that, sir?
That throughout the course of the day we had compelling evidence that Miss Reed struck Mr. O'Keefe with her vehicle.
And you have two responses from friends, the same friends, at the bottom of that page, 2537, is that correct?
That's correct.
And what are those responses?
Keep your voice up loud, please, Trooper Proctor. Jurors can't hear you.
Yes, Your Honor. Number ending 5051. Got to be. I can only imagine what internal affairs of the BPD are trying to get out there. The second response, same number. She hot at least.
You're hot at least.
Turning your attention to the next page, 2538, at the top, if you could just read.
Here comes Bev's size. She started out the day, it was Monday of this week. She started out the day totally trying to give attitude to the defense team, and by the end of the day, it seems like she was really, really annoyed with Michael Proctor instead. So at least her rage is going towards him because that's where it should be. Definitely, that's where it should be. But you know what? Before we continue, my dogs need a POTTY break. So hold on one second and I'll be right back. All right. Sorry about that. Well, let's just get going.
A series of responses from yourself, correct?
Yes, sir.
Read from those, sir.
Yep, so these came from me. From all accounts, he didn't do anything wrong. She's a whack job. CUNT.
Objection.
So don't spell it. You have to. So these are your words, Trooper Proctor?
Yes, Your Honor.
Go ahead and say them.
Cunt. Yeah, she's a babe. Weird Fall River accent, though.
He didn't even repeat the sentence. He just like says it real quietly. Because he doesn't want to be saying it. He's so ashamed of being there and reading these. Like, he should be. He absolutely should be. These are disgusting. It gets so much worse.
So don't spell it. You have to. So these are your words, Trooper Proctor?
Yes, Your Honor.
Go ahead and say them.
Cunt. Yeah, she's a babe. Weird Fall River accent, though. No ass.
She's got no ass and she's low class, is what that Fall River accent thing means, I guess. Someone, Mark Bettero, said that on Melanie Little stream, and he's local, so he knows.
And sir, what is it that you were referring to there, or why would you text that?
These were, from all accounts, he didn't do anything wrong. Is talking about Mr. Homeowner, Mr. Albert. I had mentioned the compelling evidence against Miss Reed at this point indicated that Mr. Albert had nothing to do with Mr. O'Keefe's death. The rest of the...
Wait, what? Say that again?
From all accounts, he didn't do anything wrong. Is talking about Mr. Homeowner, Mr. Albert. I had mentioned the compelling evidence against Miss Reed at this point indicated that Mr. Albert had nothing to do with Mr. O'Keefe's death.
What's the compelling evidence?
The rest of the unprofessional and regrettable comments are something I'm not proud of, and I shouldn't have wrote in a private or any type of setting.
Sir, at some point, if I could turn your attention to page 2540. And there's a photograph that's shared within this text communication, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And does it indicate who shared that photograph? From the prior page, possible.
The number ending in 5051.
And who is depicted in that photograph that was shared within the group text?
It's Miss Reed being escorted out of the State Police Milton Barracks.
And these are all from February 1st of 2022, around that time frame, is that correct?
Yes.
Now, sir, if I could direct you to page 2543. And sir, if I could direct you to the top of the page and ask you to read through that page, indicating who's speaking and what the content of those communications are.
Okay. Number ending in 4146. Question, is that chick a smoke? Again, 4146, question mark. I respond, EH. I respond again, nutbag, as Chief would say. I also respond with, she's got a leaky...
Called her a nutbag. And when asked about is she smoke? Is that how people talk over there? I don't know. I guess that means, is she hot, or does she smoke? I don't know. What is it? Let's
Smoke.
listen again.
Again, 41...
Smoke?
And ask you to read through that page, indicating who's speaking and what the content of those communications are.
Okay. Number ending in 4146. Question, is that chick a smoke?
Is that chick a smoke? What does that mean? I don't speak Cantonese.
Okay. Number ending in 4146. Question, is that chick a smoke? Again, 4146, question mark. I respond, EH. I respond again, nutbag, as Chief would say. I also respond with, she's got a leaky balloon knot, leaks poo.
And I just want to stop right there and say, this guy is a piece of shit. He's disgusting. He's appalling. I am outraged by everything that he does and stands for. And I cannot wait for the day that he is put behind federal prison bars for all the taillight planting and everything that he's done to poor Karen Reed. This is disgusting. The things that he is saying about her and calling her and basically divulging private personal information to all of his buddies. These are buddies that live all over the country. And oh my God. So, and this is just one set so far that we haven't even gotten to all of the communications where he's been talking about her for months and months on end to all sorts of people. So what he just referenced is a leaky balloon or something, or a tied knot. I don't know what he said, but I don't know if it's true or not, but I have heard that she may have a colostomy bag. She's had colitis or Crohn's disease, and she has had multiple surgeries to help her. And I mean, there is no fix, there's no cure, but she has had multiple health issues regarding her digestive system. And for him to be sitting there and using that against her in these like disgusting texts, like it makes me want to cry and vomit all at the same time for her. Like it enrages me And I'm sure it's not just her. I'm sure this isn't the only defendant or suspect that they've talked about behind their backs like this. It's appalling. And every person in Massachusetts should be calling for his resignation and Michael Morrissey's resignation because this is all under DA Michael Morrissey. And the reason these charges are going forward is because of DA Michael Morrissey. So he should be taken out of office, resign, or be forced out. And Proctor, same thing, resign or be forced out. There is an internal investigation into Michael Proctor's actions regarding the investigation of this case. But imagine how many cases he actually has investigated as a trooper for however many years he said he's been with the MSP. And I also want to remind you that Brian Walsh, who is in prison right now facing charges for taking the life of his wife, he's a former dentist, I think. I can't remember all the. I don't know. I haven't really like looked into that all that much, but I do know that Trooper Proctor, was the lead investigator in that case. Can you imagine if they did something and this guy really did end his wife's life, but because maybe they were like, well, we know he did it, so let's just plant this evidence. And that's how okay cop can become crooked. I mean, it doesn't take much. It really doesn't. And hold on one second. All right. Let's get moving.
And what, if anything, is that in reference to?
Again, to Ms. Reed's some medical conditions there. Again, unprofessional comments I should not have made, and I'm not proud of.
Not proud.
As far as attitudes expressed within these text messages and other text messages, what, if any, impact did that have as far as your investigation was concerned regarding this?
These juvenile, unprofessional comments have zero impact on the facts and the evidence and the integrity of this investigation. They said these are unprofessional comments, but they absolutely do not detract from the integrity of the investigation or the facts and evidence of it.
Really?
Your Honor, may I approach this retrieve?
We're
Yes.
supposed to believe you? Why?
Now, Trooper Proctor.
Imagine yourself in Karen's shoes. Even if you don't believe she's innocent, let's just believe she's innocent, even though she is. Let's just believe it for a second. So put yourself in her shoes. You're innocent. You have been arrested for a horrible crime, backing up into your boyfriend and taking his life, or girlfriend, who, whatever your preference. And you didn't do it. You know that like that night you were drinking, but you didn't hit him, and you saw him go into the house, but now all this stuff is happening where everybody's saying it was you and you hit him, and suddenly your car is taken from you and your phone is taken from you and all your rights are taken from you and you're arrested and you didn't do it. And then you have an asshole like this investigating the case, and he goes through your phones or goes through your phone and looks for nude pictures of you. That's what he does. I'm livid for women everywhere. I'm livid for humanity's sake. This is disgusting behavior, and I thought we've moved past this, but I guess not. We're still like kids, in high school talking about chicks and is she hot and all this stuff. I guess we haven't grown up yet.
You've seen text messages amongst yourself and a variety of different people from that same sort of iCloud area of your personal phone, correct?
Correct.
And among those, are there communications that you had with members of the Canton Police Department?
Yes.
And how would you characterize, or what was the general content of communications that you had with members of the Canton Police Department?
One communication was to coordinate interview times for firefighters and police officers and to set up a conference room where those interviews could be conducted. Obviously, the presence of Canton detectives or any police officers were not going to be sitting in on these interviews. Another communication was to inquire of relevant security videos that are in the area. Their local department, they know the area very well, so I reached.
What about the footage of the ring camera from the chief's not a chief, but he's like high ranking in the Canton PD and is right across the street from Brian Albert. He had a ring camera, but for some reason that wasn't collected.
Out and asked if there's some good cameras in the area that I had kind of interest in.
May I approach the
Yes.
What do you recognize that to be, sir? And
It's communications between my sister and I.
that's your sister, Courtney, is that correct?
That's correct.
And similar to what I'd asked you about the prior packet as far as a first message sent, date and time, last message sent, date and time, what is indicated on this first?
First message sent date time, December 10th, 2021 at 9:33 p.m. Last message sent, 8:30, 2022 at 8:48 p.m.
And 8:30, that's August 30th, is that correct?
I'm sorry, yes, August 30th, 2022.
And similarly to the other messages, is there an indication as far as how many number of messages were sent between yourself and your sister over that time period?
2,865.
And fair to say that the documents in front of you do not contain 2,865 messages?
Correct.
Now, just in reference to the first message on page 2662, the first page in this packet, do you see that from December 10th of 2021 at approximately 9:33 p.m.?
Yes.
And what does that indicate?
The text message from my sister.
And what does it say?
I called earlier, Dolph earlier, and Mom was puking in the background.
And do you recall what that was in regard to?
From the sounds of it, my mother had a stomach bug.
Why read that?
And sir, if I could direct your attention to page 2667. And these are text messages from January 29th, 2022, between yourself and your sister Courtney. Correct?
Correct.
And if you could read from the top of the page through the end, and please indicate to the jury as far as who's talking and who's saying what.
So I texted my sister at work, "What's up?" She responds, "What? Why?" I respond, "I just found it frozen to death on a front lawn in Canton this morning. Actually just interviewed
I just found frozen to death on a lawn in Canton." That was the sentence.
Jen McCabe, said she knows you,
And they knows you. Who are you referring to?
my sister.
And how did your
Jen McCabe.
sister respond to that?
Cut the shit. I responded, you. There was a typo correction with my response to you. She responded, yeah, she knows Jack very well. She's really good friends with Julie. My sister continues on. Her sister is married to Brian Albert. My sister asks, you still working, question mark. I said, yeah, going to be out for a while. Homicide.
And as far as your answers to those questions, or as far as your communications that you had with your sister at this time, on the afternoon of January 29th, what were those in regard to, or why were you communicating that to your sister?
At that time, it was just kind of in the news. I was just kind of letting her know I was out working. I didn't share anything specific. I wouldn't share anything specific on cases of my family or anyone.
You want to maybe rephrase what you just said? Because you've been sharing specific information to your buddies, your pals, your homies, talking about chicks and are they hot, and being very derogatory, calling her a nutbag or whack job.
At that time, it was just kind of in the news. I was just kind of letting her know I was out working. I didn't share anything specific. I wouldn't share anything specific on cases of my family or anyone.
You just did. And he's going to continue to do so throughout the rest of his testimony. So just warning you.
It was just kind of an overall innocent conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Now turn your attention to the next page, 2669. Again, if you could read from that page as far as who was talking and what the content is.
All right. My sister starts off, the Canton thing is a homicide. I respond, this is at 3 in the afternoon on the 29th. Don't say a word to anyone. She said, of course not. I respond, and at the very least, it's suspicious. She responds, this is your livelihood. And then I would never mess with that.
So if this is your livelihood, I would never mess with that. So obviously she knows that you telling her this is wrong. You guys are still having this conversation, but whatever.
That. 3:07, I respond, Julie and Chris were at the bar with the victim and girlfriend. Got to interview them.
Tipping off the fact that he has to interview Chris and Julie, who she's great friends with.
Direct your attention to page 2672. These are messages from February 1st, 2022, is that correct?
Correct.
And the one at the top starts about February 1st, 5:57 p.m., is that correct?
Yes.
And again, if you could read through as far as who's speaking and what the content of those messages are.
I texted my sister, "What's up?" She responded, "Nothing. I just saw Julie, and she said when this is all over, she wants to get you a thank you gift." And I respond, "Get Elizabeth one. Elizabeth's my wife."
I'm gonna play that again. We did know about this. I believe Jackson may have said it in a hearing, a pretrial hearing about this. The fact that it would appear somebody wants to give someone a gift for helping them out for something. What would that be? Maybe covering up the unaliving of a Boston police officer by their son? Maybe Julie, because Colin Albert was never interviewed by police and everybody said he wasn't in the house. And is it starting to make sense now? The conspiracy? It's not really a conspiracy if it's really happening. But yeah. Is it starting to sink in?
And my sister responds, "Because I guess her and Chris were friends with John, and she's so proud of you for leading this." And then she writes, "Elizabeth, question mark?" I respond with, "She's been stuck with the kids for the last 10 nights. My sister responded with, "Yeah, but she knew what life is like married to a cop."
And sir, as far as the gift that's mentioned as far as Julie Albert, is that anything that you have received at any point in time?
I never received a gift. I never asked for a gift. My wife never received a gift. She never asked for a gift.
But you told them to give it to your wife. So you didn't say, no, that's not right. I'm just doing my job. Instead, you say, give it to my wife.
How would you describe this context of this conversation or why that's being discussed at this time?
Again, I don't know the thought process of my sister and Julie as far as bringing that idea of a gift into play. Like I said, I didn't ask for one. I never received one. The same with my wife.
Sir, if I could direct your attention to page 2676.
I feel like he's just digging himself more and more of a hole.
And again, if I could ask you to start at the top of the page and read through and just indicate as far as who's saying, who is speaking and what they're talking.
I start out, we write like 8 to 12 warrants on each case. My sister responded, "No, I have no idea what the hell you do or how it works." I responded on the 10th at 7:36 p.m. "I'm starving, but I also just want to go home. Thanks, though." My sister responds, "Yeah, but is dinner going to be waiting?" She responded with, "Ha, ha, ha." And then I responded, "Yep." And then my sister responded with, "Okay, it's fine. Mom and I just don't want to go home."
Was that a little joke about maybe Proctor's wife doesn't cook dinner? Or something along the lines of maybe she's a bad cook? I don't know. But there's some kind of snarky comment about his wife, Elizabeth, there. And we're going to get back to Elizabeth. So don't go anywhere because when we get to the end of Proctor's we're going to finish the day. We get a little bit across and it's good. So don't go anywhere. And also, we're almost there. And then I do want to also let you guys know how Lizzie thinks of her husband after he just testified.
May I approach her?
Yes.
Elizabeth Proctor.
Mm-hmm.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes.
We've got another text screen here. Another group of people.
And we know the document, sir. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize that?
This is private messages between my wife and I.
Between his wife, Elizabeth.
And what is your wife's name?
Elizabeth.
And What, if anything, does that indicate as far as dates and times and number of messages involved?
Okay, so the first message sent 5/20/2022 at 6:19 p.m. The last message sent 8/31/2022 at 9:16 p.m.
And what, if any, indication does it give as far as number of messages within that text chain?
1,632.
And of those,
Pay attention to the dates. He's been talking about Karen for months about this. Or talking about her to his friends and coworkers and oh yeah, coworkers, superiors. It gets worse.
1,162, there's one message that's listed on that, is that correct?
Correct.
And what is the date and time of that message, and what does it say, and who's speaking?
This is me speaking on June 9th, 2022 at 4:56 p.m. I text my wife waiting to lock this whack job up.
And
Waiting to lock this whack job up. Even though she didn't do anything, and I didn't investigate anything, I just can't wait to lock her up. Oh, Michael Proctor.
what are you referring to in that text, sir?
I'm referring to the arrest after Miss Reed was indicted by the grand jury.
And again, as far as the terminology that you use in that text message to your wife, why is it?
Again, unprofessional messages I should not have sent. I don't have an explanation other than they're regrettable and something I'm not proud of the language I used.
And approach to retrieve your own?
Do you think he really regrets them? I don't.
Yes. All right, so Trooper Proctor, the jurors can't hear you. So speak directly into your microphone the way I'm doing, okay?
Yes, Your Honor.
Bev's tone changes a bit when she talks to him. All right, come on. Oh, another sidebar.
Unmuted.
Now, Trooper Proctor, you're familiar with conversations that's within the same text communications from your personal phone with colleagues of yours at the state police?
Yes.
And Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
All right.
Another document, sir. Before I get into that, though, if I could turn your attention back to some of the comments on the language used in the January 29th and February 1st or 2nd text communications among your friend group. With reference to that particular time frame and the language that you used, what sort of information had you gathered to that point, and why would you say or use that particular language in your, particularly in your descriptions of the defendant?
So this is, 16, 18 hours later, and I conducted multiple interviews.
Speak up.
Conducted multiple interviews. We knew Mr. O'Keefe never went into Fairview Road. We knew there was one shoe at the scene, one shoe at the hospital. Based off Mr. O'Keefe's injuries, Miss Reed's statements when Sergeant Buchanan and I interviewed her, her broken taillight, the missing taillight, some taillight pieces found at the scene, the compelling evidence pointing directly at Miss Reed that she struck Mr. O'Keefe with her vehicle led me to make those comments. Whether, like I said, they weren't professional comments, but based on the day's investigation, it was clear that Miss Reed had struck Mr. O'Keefe with her vehicle.
Sir, if I could turn your attention to the documents before you, do you recognize those?
I do.
And as far as the participants in that particular conversation, who were the participants listed there?
It's Trooper David DeChico and myself.
And Trooper DeChico and yourself both work within the same unit with the state police, is that correct?
That's correct.
And beyond the professional relationship you have with yourself, between yourself and Trooper DeChico, how would you characterize your relationship, generally speaking?
We're buddies, we go off together, hang outside of work, our kids play together, so I'd say, we're friends.
Now, within
They're buddies. So this is a buddy who he works with. He's another MSP trooper, and he was with Michael Proctor on a couple of the times that they went to go and find more and more taillight. Taillight never appeared, never revealed itself until after they already had her car in custody. Remember this. They had it in custody for about 90 minutes, and the CERT team didn't go until a certain time after. So someone went, and it is possible, probable and plausible that someone may have taken taillight from Karen Reed's car from that sallyport and brought it to 34 Fairview Road, which is not far from the Canton Police Station. Just saying.
Again, as far as the first message sent, date and time, and last message sent, date and time within this conversation, if you could describe that for the jury.
First message sent, date and time, March 17th, 2022, 11:08 a.m. Last message sent, date and time, August 18th, 2022, 6:08 a.m.
And again, the number of messages listed within this text chain.
87.
And fair to say the documents before you do not contain 87 text messages, correct?
That's correct, sir.
Now, just in general terms, if you have an opportunity to just look at the first couple pages there, fair to say those are just sort of jokes that you have going back and forth between yourself and Trooper DeChico. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Now, if I could turn your attention specifically to page 2632. And these are text messages starting on April 28, 2022 at 10:52 in the morning. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, what was the time again, sir?
April 28, 2022, 10:52 a.m.
Yes, correct.
And again, sir, with reference to this page, if you could read the content to the jury and please indicate who is speaking at each respective times.
Okay. I said out without a doubt, he's got diarrhea of the mouth too. Trooper DeChico, rookie move, not going into a meeting with the ME and getting that homicide determination. I respond, Yuri and I had 2 conference calls with her, sent her numerous photos, etc.
We're going to listen to this again. So someone's busting his balls basically about going in and talking to the medical examiner, the ME, and getting certain cause of death on the certificate of death. Right?
Trooper DeChico, rookie move, not going into a meeting with the ME and getting that homicide determination. I respond, Yuri and I had 2 conference calls with her, sent her numerous photos, etc. We laid out the entire case for her. Trooper DeChico responds, not good enough, should have had me or Jeff do it. I respond, if you two did it, she would have made it accidental or natural causes.
So there's that. Apparently, they do a lot of convincing of the ME how they should report the determination and cause.
And can you explain the context of those communications, or what exactly is it that you and Trooper DeChico are talking about in that communication?
So the ME is a medical examiner. They conducted the autopsy of Mr. O'Keefe. Our office, it's kind of a little bit of a locker room.
Hold on, wait for the ambulance, and then speak up. The jurors can't hear you way back where the court officer's standing.
So like I said, the ME stands for medical examiner. They conducted the autopsy of Mr. O'Keefe. I guess I'll address the conference calls Sergeant Buchanan and I had with the medical examiner. The doctor had some questions as to the facts and evidence, kind of what had transpired, which is common. You know, even if it's a homicide, I've had many calls with the medical examiner's office, even if it's a suicide or overdose. I wouldn't say almost always with a homicide, the doctor wants to know what transpired. Trooper DeChico.
The doctor shouldn't know what transpired because it could make her prejudice or it could prejudice her ruling in her report and how she sees things. She might not notice whatever, and she might notice something else that could have been the cause of death. So the medical examiner and the lead investigator, although sometimes the lead investigator and maybe another officer might attend an autopsy, they really shouldn't have any influence on the medical examiner, like at all. But of course they do. Of course they do. The cop's standing over you, watching you do your job, and they want you to make it one way in your reports. So of course it has some kind of bearing on them. You know what I mean? It's got to. Psychologically, even just knowing their cops standing over you. Even though you might work with them every day, it's still kind of nerve-wracking. Because you know these cops have some power and maybe some potentially corrupt ways of doing things.
Myself, we kind of like to bust each other's chops, go back and forth. So that's what he meant by saying,
a joke.
Rookie move, not going into a meeting with the ME and getting that homicide determination. The original determination came back.
Sustained. Next question, Mr. Malley.
Now, as far as
I believe the determination came back as um undetermined, right? So I don't know why they would object to that.
attending the autopsy, is that something that typically someone within your office would do, within your unit would do with regard to any sort of death investigation?
Yes.
And do you know who attended the autopsy of Mr. O'Keefe in this specific case?
Trooper Connor Keefe.
And so as far as Trooper Chico's reference to you not going in, or Sergeant Mechanic not going in, is that what you believe Trooper Chico was referring to in that message?
Objection.
Sustained as to the form.
You indicated that you and Trooper Chico bust each other's chops. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
And can you describe a little more, expound upon that as far as the nature of your relationship and sort of the text messages that you exchange in this and then other communications that you have?
Basically, just kind of needling each other, and him doing that is by saying, texting me, rookie move, not going into meeting with the medical examiner. So that's a perfect example of him kind of just needling me, which we do on a daily basis.
And as far as your interpretation of that, did you interpret that as a serious comment or something said in jest?
I interpreted that as a typical joke from Trooper Chico.
May I approach?
I don't buy it. That's not something you joke about. Haha. Good job not influencing the medical examiner the way you wanted him to.
To retrieve?
Yes.
Hmm.
May I approach room?
Yes.
How is that?
Text messages between myself and Trooper Chico.
And again, what is the first message sent, date and time, last message sent, date and time, and number of messages contained therein?
First message sent, date and time, April 28th, 2022 at 1:09 p.m. Last message sent, date and time, April 28th, 2022, 4:45 p.m.
And the number of messages, sir?
4.
And if you could read the contents of those messages contained therein. Please indicate who's speaking.
So I started out, of course it's undetermined. She was a whack job.
We talked about Attorney Melanie Little brought this up in her chat the other day or on her live stream. Was he calling the ME a whack job? It sounds like it because it's like, well, of course she ruled undetermined. She's a whack job, right? That's what he just said there, right? I think. I'm pretty sure. Back up a little.
Read the contents of those messages contained therein. Please indicate who's speaking.
So I started out, of course it's undetermined. She was a whack job. Trooper Chico responds, "Dear God, WTF, what the hell's inconclusive about the whole thing?"
And as far as your indication there, as far as she was a whack job, who are you referring to there?
Miss Reed.
I don't think he was. I think they said on Melanie Little's channel, I think it was Melanie's idea, that I don't want to take credit for her idea. She had said that potentially, what was I saying? What did he just say?
WTF.
Oh, that he's attributing it to saying I was calling Miss Reed a whack job, so that when the ME does come and testify, she won't be mad at him for calling her a whack job. It's a good theory. I think, she might be like, screw him. I'm gonna just be honest, and if I come forward and say in testimony what he told me to say, then, whatever. She might turn on him because he called her a whack job. Maybe. I would like to see that.
What the hell's inconclusive about the whole thing?
And as far as your indication there, as far as she was a whack job, who are you referring to there?
Miss Reed.
No.
Now, as far as the undetermined or what you're talking about, what is sort of the content or the context of this conversation?
That would be the manner of death was determined to be undetermined by the medical examiner's office.
And so I ask you again, as far as your reference there in the bottom of the first page, as far as she was a whack job, whom do you believe you're referring to there?
Again,
Ms. Reed or the medical examiner?
Miss Reed.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
got to read through it and make sure that they're okay to publish. Oh, they're in another sidebar. We're almost at cross, I promise. It's going to get good in a few minutes.
Yes.
Okay, handing you another set of documents. Review those, look up when you're finished. Do you recognize those, sir?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize those to be?
Another text thread between myself, Trooper DeChico, and Trooper Kokowski.
And Trooper Kaskowski is another trooper within your unit in the state police, is that correct?
Yes.
And again, if you could read from the first message sent, date and time, and the last message sent, date and time.
First message sent, date and time, 5/24/2022, 9:21 p.m. Last message sent, date and time, 8/24/2022, 4:56 p.m.
And as far as the number of messages indicated within this text chain between yourself, Trooper Kakowski, and Trooper DeChico,
494.
fair to say the documents before you do not contain 494 text messages, correct?
Correct.
Just in reference to that first page 2635, first message sent, that's May 24th, 2022, around 9:21 p.m., is that correct?
Yes.
And that's a message sent from Trooper Kaskowski, is that correct?
Correct.
And what is that?
Appears to be a picture of a toy Santa Claus.
Now, sir, if I could direct your attention to page 2644. If I could direct you to the bottom of the page, sir, and see the text from yourself at June 9th, 2022 at 11:19 p.m.
Yes.
Very bottom of the page. Your Honor, may I approach just to point it out?
Yes.
Yeah, I see it, sir. Okay.
If you could read what you wrote on June 9th, 2022, around that time, sir.
If you like women who shit themselves.
And again, sir, what is it that you're referring to there?
Again, a regrettable comment I made about Miss Reed's medical condition.
Yep, that's what he said.
Now, if I could direct you to the following page, 2645. And again, if you could read from that page as far as who is, and indicate to the jury who is speaking and what is being said on page 2645.
I'm speaking right now. The statement she made tonight at 8/7 was mental. Thank Christ it was on BWC, which is body worn camera.
So he's talking about what she said on the body worn camera was mental. When she said, "You're all in on the same joke, right? My taillight is cracked and John's face was pulverized." And that's what he's referring to, which again just reinforces that Karen Reed always thought from the beginning that this was a setup, that she was being framed.
Trooper Kokowski responds, "That's her. Smoke." Trooper Kokowski again, what'd she say? I respond, "Said the Alberts beat the shit out of O'Keefe, left him for dead, and that's why her taillight was cracked. She's gross." Trooper DeChico, "Oh, fuck her, bitch."
Thank you, sir. Can I approach your retrieving arm?
Can you imagine law enforcement talking about you like that?
And sir, with reference to that last bit as far as June 9th, 2022, what was going on that day in reference to this matter again?
Miss Reed was being processed at the Milton Barracks.
Thank you.
I give Karen Reed so much props for having to sit there and listen to this BS all day from these people that are just lying to her face. They probably won't even look at Karen. And to the jurors, they're lying. To the judge, to the whole world, they're lying. But we're not that stupid.
I may have just a moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
Another text thread with members from my office, troopers.
And who are the troopers that are listed within that?
Trooper Chris Moore, Trooper Jeff Kokowski, Lieutenant John Fanning, Trooper David Chico, and Sergeant Yuri Buchanan.
Lieutenant Fanning is one of his bosses. The lieutenant. A lieutenant that should also resign from their position.
What is the first message sent, date and time?
That would be 5/26/2022 at 8:19 p.m. Last message sent, date and time, 8/26/2022, 5:36 p.m.
All of the people on this text chain should resign. Turn your badges in and just go home.
And what is listed as far as the number of messages within this chain?
651.
And fair to say the documents before you do not contain all 651 of those messages within this chain. Is that correct?
Correct.
Now, sir, if I could direct your attention to page 2682. You see a message sent from Trooper DeChico on August 17th, 2022 at 9:42 p.m.
Yes.
And is that an image contained on the next page, which is 2683?
Yes, it is.
And what is the image of?
That is a picture of Mr. Yannetti, appears to be from quite some time ago.
Now, turning your attention to the next page, 2684. And there's a response from you, August 17th, 2022 at 9:44 p.m. Is that correct?
Sorry, go the date and time again, please.
Sure. Page 2684, 8/17/2022, 9:44 p.m.
Yes.
You see there's like sort of three responses from you?
I have you now.
If you could just read the three responses from yourself, sir.
Okay, so these came from me. Funny, I'm going through his retarded client's phone. No nude so far. I hate that man. I truly am.
Funny. I'm going through his retarded client's phone right now. I hate that man. I truly hate him. After somebody sent him a picture of David Yannetti, Karen's defense attorney. At that time, Alan Jackson hadn't been hired on, so it was definitely David Yannetti. She got him right away, which is smart for anybody to do. So if they're trying to make her look bad because she hired a defense attorney, it's not going to work. People already don't trust the cops in Massachusetts.
Now, with reference to the investigation at this point, when you're talking about his client's phone, who are you referring to?
Miss Reed.
And with regards to the phone at that point, can you describe for the jury sort of what's going on during this time period of August 17, 2022 in regard to Ms. Reed's phone?
So after obtaining a search warrant from Miss Reed's phone, we weren't able to extract any data from it until August of 2023. Troopers in my office knew I was going through the phone that evening. I was most interested in location data, text messages, Google searches. That was the update I gave the troopers in the office. It was a distasteful joke. I should have gave a proper update instead of that. I wasn't able to go through the phone as thoroughly as possible because I came across some a text between an attorney and Ms. Reed, so I had to stop going through her phone, and it made my supervisor aware of those communications.
Now, just in reference to what you had just said, this is in August of 2022, is that correct?
Correct.
So after a search warrant is obtained for the defendant's phone, where did it go? You indicated you gave it to Trooper Garino, and where did it go from there?
Trooper Garino essentially hooks up to a device called Grey Key, where he tries every possible combination passcodes in order to access the data contained in the phone.
And at that time, when you retrieved it pursuant to the search warrant, you didn't have the passcode to the defendant's phone, is that correct?
Correct.
So that device is designed to sort of go through numbers.
But he said he watched the defendant put her passcode in. He said that earlier. I pointed it out. But he doesn't have her password. Okay.
And try to find a combination to get into the phone, correct?
Correct.
And so from the time that you had seized it in late January or on January 29th, 2022, until this date in August of 2022, had you been able to get into the phone or see anything in the phone in those intervening months, or 7 months between January and August?
No.
And so then at this time that you're sending this text message in August of 2022, is that around the time that you were first able to access the phone?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
Yes, that was the first time we were able to have access to the phone.
I don't believe it. You knew her password because you watched her put her password in. So with or without a search warrant, you could have gotten in there. Which makes him even more shady.
And with reference to your access to the phone, were you looking for news or anything like that in regard to the defendant?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
No, like I stated, I was most interested in Miss Reed's location data, text communications, Google searches, things of that nature. More evidence contained within the phone.
And so,
not
sir,
nude.
You mentioned at some point you came across some information that caused you to sort of freeze your looking through the phone. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so as far as that specific time period in August of 2022, when was the next time that you or any troopers from your office were able to actually look at any extraction of the defendant's phone?
So once I came across that text communication that took place on the 29th between Ms. Reed and an attorney, the phone had to be sent off to what they call a taint team to remove any attorney-client privilege information from the phone, and then it would be returned to us as well as defense received a copy of that as well. I'm not positive on the time. It was quite a long turnaround for that process to be completed.
Sometime at least in the spring or summer of 2023. Does that sound about right?
That sounds about right.
May I approach the retrieve, Your Honor?
Yes.
Who does that? Who's got that job to redact all the client attorney privilege?
May I have one moment, Your Honor?
Yes.
I have no further questions.
All right, so I'm going to see you at sidebar so I don't interrupt your cross.
Let's go. I'm so ready for this cross. We only get a few minutes, but it's worth it. Trust me. Stay tuned. And then afterwards, I've got some Lizzie Proctor updates. This is a long one, huh?
That out, but as it looks right now, I thought it was going to interfere with another date this week. As it looks right now, it may not. At the most. Go ahead.
Mr. Proctor, in the summer of 2022, August 17th specifically, you were sitting at your desk, presumably alone at your office, at about 10 p.m. at night, going through my client's personal cell phone, correct?
Yes, sir.
As a matter of fact, you were sitting there texting with your friends and colleagues at Massachusetts State Police about you going through her personal cell phone. Is that right?
Correct, sir.
And that included Trooper DeChico, is that right?
DeChico, yes, sir.
Trooper Fanning, Trooper Butnick, Trooper Moore, and Trooper Kaczkowski.
Kakowski.
Tell me that again?
Kakowski.
Kakowski.
Yes, sir.
All right, all the consonants are silent. Fair enough. Trooper Fanning and Trooper Butnick are your supervisors.
Yes.
And you were bragging to all 5 of them that you were going through Karen Reed's cell phone about 9:45 at night.
Objection.
I'll allow it.
Is that right?
No, I wasn't bragging, sir.
Yeah, you were. Yeah, you were.
How did you refer to Miss Reed in that text exchange where you informed them that you were going through her phone?
I use regrettable language. I said going through his retarded client's phone right now.
You were shown a photograph of my colleague, Mr. Unetti, correct?
Yes.
Can I approach?
Yes.
Same document. Your Honor, I think the court has the copy that I was going to use.
I thought I gave him back to you.
If I could, I would ask that this document be marked as next in order. The that you were shown.
Correct.
All right. Is that a true and accurate reflection of the text messages that you were exchanging with Chris Moore, Jeff Kakowski, John Fanning, Vito DeChico, and Yuri Buchanan?
Yes.
I'd ask that this be marked.
Okay, any objection?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, I'll see you at sidebar. May I have that, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Sidebar. He doesn't give many questions in, but it gives you just a little taste of what's to come. Is he? It might even be over now.
Okay. And then I would ask you to give it back to the witness, please.
Oh, okay. We got a couple questions.
Yes.
Trooper Proctor, Trooper DeChico had sent you a photograph of my colleague, Mr. Unetti, correct?
Yes.
Your Honor, because of a technical issue, I'm not going to display on the television. May I display this hard copy briefly? Sure. Thank you. You see that, gentleman?
I do, sir.
Is that the photograph that you received?
Yes.
Is that what you referred to on direct examination with Mr. Lally about receiving a photograph from of Mr. Unetti?
Correct.
And then your response was what?
I hate that man. I truly hate that man.
Actually, your response was, I'm going through his retarded client's phone right now, correct?
Yes, after the picture, sir, yes.
Who's the retarded client?
I was referring to Miss Reed again.
Look at Yannetti staring him down, and Karen. They both are like, tell me what you did. Go ahead, say it to my face. Usually Yannetti's like typing away and taking notes on his computer, but he's facing the witness and he is intensely like focused, and he's like, oh, you hate me? Tell me what you really think about me. Say it to my face.
Again, unprofessional language.
I'm asking who you were referring to.
Miss Reed.
You've got an explanation. Who was it you were referring to as retarded?
Miss Reed.
Karen Reed, the woman sitting to my left.
Yes, sir.
The subject of your investigation as a professional, correct?
Yes, sir.
As an unbiased, objective investigator. The person that you were investigating, you referred to your bosses as retarded, correct?
Again, poor language on my part.
Poor language is one way to put it. Completely offensive is another way to put it, right?
Objection.
I've got to sustain that, Mr. Jackson.
But it's true. Fanning, Lieutenant Fanning and Trooper Buchanan are his bosses, and he's texting them this. And it gets worse.
After you referred to my client as retarded, then you decided to make a comment about Mr. Yannetti, her lawyer, correct?
Correct.
And what did you say about Mr. Unetti again?
I hate that man. I truly hate that man.
I hate that man. I truly hate him. Correct?
Correct.
You didn't say I dislike him, I disagree with him. You said I hate him. Correct?
Correct, sir.
That's a visceral response to someone who's just doing a job. Correct?
Yep.
Objection.
Sustained. You can ask it differently.
Sure. Let me ask it this way. Were you upset or annoyed or pissed off that Karen Reed had gotten representation, legal representation, to represent her?
No, not at all. That's her right.
But are you just going to hate her representation just because she has it? Like that makes no sense then. Or why hate Unetti?
Well, let me ask you this. In August of 2022, you said you absolutely hate it, correct?
I don't know if he used absolutely. Yeah, I didn't use absolutely, sir.
You used truly, correct?
Truly, yes.
How do you feel about it now? You're sitting right there.
I still don't care for him, no.
I'll let it stand.
He said, "How do you feel about him now?" Lolly says objection. He goes, "Objection," like right into the mic. And then um uh-oh. Sorry, boyfriend's home, so dogs went running down the stairs, and as you know, they sound like a stampede. All right, so we're almost done, I promise. Um, I don't know what I was saying. Here we go. Oh, I was reiterating that he said, "How do you feel about him now?" Lolly says objection, and then he said, "I still don't care for him." And then the judge said, "I'll let it stand." So that's what happened.
Did you tell your colleagues that you were looking for as you sat at almost 10 p.m. at night on a Wednesday night, August 17th, 2022, looking through Karen Reed's phone?
I didn't tell them I was looking through anything. They knew I was going through Miss Reed's phone. I provided a inappropriate joke as an update. They knew I was going through location data, text messages, Google searches. But like I had mentioned earlier, I had stopped.
Except for Proctor, none of that really professional sounding stuff ended up in your comments to your bosses, did it?
Again, it was a poor joke.
Is that yes or no?
Did not know.
It did not.
No,
As a
sir.
matter of fact, what did you write after you talked about going through the, quote, retarded client's phone?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
What he said.
No news so far.
No nudes so far, correct?
Correct.
And you said that to your bosses.
Yes, sir.
Every woman in America is fuming right now. And if all of our rage could go towards him, maybe he'll just implode. I don't know.
You were looking for naked photographs of Miss Reed on a Wednesday night as you sat in your office at 9:44 p.m., correct?
No, not correct.
Let me ask you a question. Have you ever looked for naked photos of a male suspect that you were investigating?
I don't look for naked photos on anyone's phones.
But you said you were looking for nudes of Miss Reed,
Like I
correct?
said, Mr. Jackson, it was an inappropriate joke.
Sir, this is a citizen. She's a woman. You were supposed to be objectively investigating. Does your text message to your colleagues at Massachusetts State Police reflect an objective investigation of a citizen?
Objection.
You can get part of that question and ask it again.
Do you believe that your text messages were reflective of an objective investigator?
Objection.
I'll allow that. Do you believe that, Trooper Proctor?
I believe poor jokes have, in unprofessional language, have no bearing on the integrity and the facts and physical evidence of this case.
It's not that they don't have any bearing on the facts and integrity. It's that they have no place in a professional investigation because it shows bias, right?
Objection.
So I have to sustain that as asked. Go ahead and ask it differently, Mr. Jackson.
You weren't so much as objectively investigating Karen Reed as objectifying her, correct?
Objection.
I'll allow that.
Isn't that right?
Rephrase the question, please.
You weren't so much as objectively investigating her as objectifying her in those moments, correct?
Again, Mr. Jackson, it was a poor choice of words and a joke that I should not have texted out. But from the start of the investigation, we didn't know what we had.
And your, Trooper Proctor, your point in saying no nudes so far to your colleagues in Massachusetts State Police was to suggest that you were looking for nudes and you'd update them when you found them, correct?
Incorrect.
Well, let me ask you a question. Did you find any nudes of
Again,
Karen Reed?
I didn't go through the photo, sir.
Did you find any nudes of Karen Reed?
I didn't go through the photo, sir.
You weren't successful in your quest.
I came across text messages from Miss Reed to another attorney on January 29th, so I stopped looking through her phone.
So you got sidetracked before you could get to the naked pictures of Miss Reed. Is that what you're saying?
Sustained.
To be clear, when you sent those text messages on that group chat, those text messages included, as we said, or as you said, not one but two of your supervisors, correct?
Correct.
Were you ever reprimanded for your conduct in sending that text message?
Objection.
So that's sustained. Do we need to go to sidebar based on what you told me earlier?
We do not.
Okay, so...
I'll ask it a different way.
Okay.
She doesn't want him to get into the internal investigation into Michael Proctor because, for whatever reason, the jury, she doesn't want the jury to know about it. And I think that's bull. I think they should know. He's under investigation for this case, for the way he investigated this case. I think it's quite important. But Judge Bev, as we have seen, she rules quite often for the prosecution. Although there are some days where, like today in this instance, Jackson makes a lot of headway in just a short amount of time.
Did either Trooper Fanning or Trooper Buchanan dress you down in a responsive text message in that text thread for doing something so abhorrent as looking for nudes or referring to nudes of a female suspect or subject of your investigation? Did that ever happen?
Not that I can recall.
As a matter of fact, in reference to one of the text messages in the same string, your boss, Yuri Buchanan, actually responded to the photo of Mr. Yannetti, didn't he?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
He did, sir.
After you received the photo, that's when you said, I'm, quote, funny, I'm going through his retarded client's phone. Is that right?
Objection.
I'll allow this, but not too many more.
Sure. Is that correct? It's on the top of page
Yes, sir.
685.
That's correct.
And Yuri Buchanan liked that comment. Funny, I'm going through his retarded client's phone. Didn't he?
I see you laughed at an image here, sir. I can't tell if he liked that comment, sir.
Can I approach?
Yes.
I don't know if it's just because it's faded or... Yeah, my copy's faded.
Top 2685. You can use my copy if that helps.
Thank you.
What do you see on the top of that page?
That Sergeant Buchanan liked it.
Like what?
The going through his retarded client's phone, sir.
May I approach?
Yes.
I'll take my copy.
There you go.
His boss, Yuri Buchanan, liked that comment. What does that tell you about the environment, the culture within the Mass State Police? It's disgusting that this is being allowed and that he can violate people's rights like that and talk about people like that, talk about suspects like that.
So your supervisors at Massachusetts State.
Even if Karen did do it and she didn't, but even let's say she did, this she still has rights and she still is a human being and you still should not be talking about people like this. It's just wrong and icky and gross, and that's why I put the disgusting like vomit emojis, because he makes me want to vomit and cry at the same time for humanity's sake.
Police not only didn't ride you for making comments like this, encouraged it.
Objection.
Sustained.
Trooper Proctor, this is your direct chain of command. Is that right? Yuri Buchanan?
Yes, sir.
Did you believe that your conduct was a misuse of your authority and power as you were going through her phone in August of 2022?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
No, I had a warrant signed by a district clerk, Stoughton District Clerk, to go through Miss Reed's phone. I don't think it was an abuse of power. I had every right to go through that phone.
Did the warrant say anything about looking for nudes of my client?
Objection.
Did it
No,
say anything about that?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, next question.
So that would be an abuse of the power that was given to you by the court, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
Absolutely it is. Absolutely it is. I'll answer that for him.
Trooper Proctor, you'd agree that the hallmark of any good investigation, as you've been taught and others in the Massachusetts State Police have been taught, is that the investigation and the investigator have to be fair. They have to be impartial. Would you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Meaning that the investigation has to be free of conflicts, right?
Yes, sir.
The investigator has to be free of conflicts, right?
Yes.
The investigation has to be free of bias. Is that right?
Correct.
You can't be biased against the person that you're investigating. That would compromise the entire thing, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Basically, you follow the evidence. You're supposed to follow the evidence wherever it takes you, right?
Correct.
Good or bad, top to bottom, just follow the evidence and report it back. That's how an investigation is supposed to be run, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
And these are things that you learn early on at Massachusetts State Police Academy and then in your detective training. Isn't that right?
It is.
Literally, it's part of an oath that you took at the academy that you will, quote, faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all of the duties incumbent on you as a Massachusetts State Police trooper, right?
Yes, sir.
You swore that oath.
I did.
When you start an investigation, everybody in that investigation should be treated exactly the same. Don't you believe that's true?
Correct.
Everybody, have you ever heard the phrase, everybody's a suspect until they're not, right?
Objection.
Sustained.
It's especially important early in an investigation, before all of the facts are known, that the investigator is not compromised by bias, prejudice, right?
Correct.
Most important early in the investigation, because that's when the most things are up in the air. There's the cloud, the fog of not knowing exactly what the truth is, right?
Objection.
Sustained.
In other words, Trooper Proctor, you don't get to pick a suspect and then try to find evidence to support your choice, right?
Correct.
But in this case, it's exactly what you did, isn't it?
Absolutely not.
All right, Mr. Jackson, why don't we end for today?
This is
Okay.
a good place to think. Thank you.
Okay. All right. All right. So, folks, we're off tomorrow. Those same three.
All right, so that's the end of that. And so we have court full days Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. There was no court today, Tuesday. So um we get to basically pick up where AJ left off, and hopefully he's going to come in hot in the morning like he usually does, and it's going to be entertaining to watch. And as I promised, I've got the Lizzie Proctor update. Let me get it ready one second. Okay. So I have pulled up here two images that I grabbed off of an article that Turtle Boy, Carney, Aiden Turtle Boy Carney, he had posted this in an article yesterday, right after Michael Proctor left the stand, and or not right after, but shortly after, and says that these are from Lizzie Proctor. These are Facebook posts or social media posts. I'm assuming Facebook. I don't know. From Lizzie Proctor yesterday. So keep that in mind. Right after Michael Proctor's abhorrent, disgusting display of law enforcement and of a man and just whatever else. He's not a man. He is very, very lacking of a man. All right, so this is Lizzie Proctor, his wife. Throughout this year, we have seen the worst of our society through social media, but now it has crossed from the vile messages on the internet into our physical lives. There is knowing intent to try to harm and intimidate us. There is knowing intent? What does that mean? People drive by our home regularly, take photos, and send them to us to try to scare us that we are being watched. I don't believe them. Photos of our children have been sent to us and our friends, letters that say they hope our children get cancer, a cancer diagnosis because it would be karma for what horrible parents we are. We have been told to end ourselves, to take a bullet to the roof of our mouths. That this world would be better without us and that our children would deserve better. Well, your children do deserve better, and the world would be better if you were put behind bars, especially your husband. Voicemails saying people are going to come and take our kids away from us. And the sad thing is that this behavior has been considered okay even by people we thought we trusted. This harassment is daily, and I can never fully put into words the toll this has taken on us and all the other families involved. None of this is okay, and I look forward to the day this behavior is put to an end. I couldn't be prouder of Mike. He took an oath to protect and serve, and he has done just that. The truth will always prevail. Ugh. Barf. So that's that one. And the other one. See how they become victims now? Like she just went into like total victimhood and blaming of others. And our lives are so hard because we're victims now and blah, blah. Feel sorry for me. So this next one says, the past 14 months have been stranger than fiction. I never could have imagined what our family would go through. As a LE family, law enforcement family, you expect some difficult days because of the nature of the work, especially in the homicide unit. The inherent risks of the job, the long hours, seeing horrific crime scenes, and sometimes having to deliver the worst news to families. It is what police officers sign up for when they enter the profession, and by extension, their families too. But being labeled corrupt, a criminal, a cop killer, bullied, slandered, harassed, and threats to our family on a regular basis was never something on our radar of things we would need to worry about. Well, maybe don't cover up the crimes of your BFF, Brian Albert and Nicole Albert, and their kid, Chris and Julie's kid, Colin, and then you wouldn't be in this situation. People wouldn't be so outraged. Just saying. This case has revealed the toxicity of social media and the threat to justice by narrow minded bloggers. So there's another dig at Aiden. A narrow minded bloggers and their cult following who question nothing. Oh, sweet, sweet Lizzie. We question everything. And that, my dear, is why we are scrutinizing you and you don't like it. Sadly, the death of a Boston police officer has become their entertainment, weaving and twisting facts, F-A-X, she spells facts into a fictional story. It should be F-A-C-T-S, obviously. Twisting facts into a fictional story that is much more attention grabbing and tantalizing than as it really is a drunk driver hit and run case. That's not what it is, and that's not what the evidence points to. To the bloggers' followers, we are just characters in their story. No, no, sweetie, you're not. You're complicit in a crime. That's what you are. There is a suspension of reality, like it's a video game, which empowers them to do and say anything they want. I must believe they suffer from the delusionment because I cannot imagine rational people believe in what they are doing and saying is okay to so many innocent families. You know what's sick and appalling is that Lizzie Proctor has anyone that has criticized or whatever her husband, her sweet little Mike, she's called and complained to people's employers and tried to get people fired just for speaking out about this investigation and saying that things don't add up. Just because we speak out about it, the entire McAlbert clan, the Lizzie Proctors, the Jen McCabe's, they all come at you from social media and try to attack you and put you down. And that's what they've been trying to do to Aiden, to Karen, to anybody that talks about this case, myself included. I mean, it is just ridiculous that this treatment from these people is allowed. They've been getting away with crap for so long in this town that it's like they're doing it on an open platform for the entire world to see and they don't care. That's how disgusting these people are. I have no I have no other words. I'm just really disgusted by Trooper Pooper is what I want to call him. He's a Trooper Pooper. He's just full of shit. He's a liar. He plants evidence. He talks horrible things about his suspects. He violates their rights. He takes things without warrants. I mean, I could go on, but I'm not even going to. So hopefully, I'm fired up. I can't wait for Cross tomorrow. I hope you guys are excited about it too. And we will definitely, I'll do some more follow up on that because I'm sure there's going to be some more fireworks and some explosive bombshells dropped and all sorts of things. So stay tuned. Make sure you are subscribed. Please hit that like button. And I hope to see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Take care, guys. Bye. If you've been impacted by a true crime and would like your story told in your own words, or if you or someone you know has been wrongfully convicted or accused of a crime, please write to crimeincourtchannel@gmail.com and tell us your real true crime encounters. Thanks for watching.